On this episode of the Star Wars Time Show, Matt and Nick will be recapping the top Star Wars moments of 2023, complete with their personal top fives. Before that, though, the dudes will hit on the latest Mandalorian Season 4 rumors and a sequel trilogy reveal that shows just how chaotic the story got thanks to having too many cooks in the writing room kitchen. Of course, the show will end with the question of the week responses and the latest round of top 5 Star Wars fan artist features. Punch it, Chewie.
Let's do it.
Hey, now everybody! It's Star Wars Time Show, end of the year. It's Star Wars Time Show, end of the year. Hey, that's why we need a Fred. I told you people, I can't do it all myself. But welcome back to the Star Wars Time Show, the final SWTS of 2023. Super smooth transition, Bat. That's how we roll. He's on the live stream. You all don't know what you're missing out if you skip the live streams. Tuesdays, 5 p. East, youtube.com/Star Wars Time Show. We've been doing this for 3 solid years now, at least one time a week, and we have yet to been able to, as they would say in the business, hit the post. Okay, we completely, we go right, we go left, we go wide right, wide left, over it, short. We never hit it, but that is what you get with the SWTS. So this is our last show of the year. We're taking next week off. I know we promised you some content, but guess what?
Life happened.
Right.
People have lives.
When shit is free,
stuff around.
Shit is free. And we weren't able to record Scoundrels last week due to one of the team members, his old lady, kind of roped him into something. And as Nick said, life happened. All right. There's nothing you can do. Like I said, free is free. I'm never going to complain about people that have better things to do than talk to Nick and I. All right. We understand. It's not something you circle on the calendar each month. Like, ooh, I get to talk to these idiots. So chapter 4 of Scoundrels is going to be pushed back to 2024. Hopefully end of January, something like that.
It will.
But you know us. I mean, we are 2 gas bags. We have multiple shows still left to process for clips. So over the next week or so, I will be busting out Star Wars Time Show clips from the end of the year for you all to consume, love, and definitely not share, because no one shares our shit, period. And that's why we love you all. You might as well. You know, why change anything now? We've been going for so long. Let's just keep spinning our tires in the mud, staying stuck in the same fucking spot, because that is how we roll. All right, so we got all sorts of fun stuff today. We've got some official Star Wars news to get into. Dave talking about Thrawn, Nick's favorite guy. Tic-tac-toe Thrawn, not chess Thrawn, you know. Okay, we always have to clarify that on the show for Nick. Adam Driver dropped some interesting stuff that will get Nick worked up. I mean, too bad this didn't happen a few weeks ago, because it pretty much played right into our sequel trilogy. What if Dave Filoni CCO'd that shit? More Mandalorian Season 4 nonsense. We're not going to waste a lot of your time. As Nick said, and I was like, dude, that's the segment. When we get there, say the same thing. But it's like, I just got to start trusting only making Star Wars Investment Bulletin. Fuck these hot mic people, this, that, and the other thing. But yeah, we have another update on The Mandalorian Season 4. And I'm saying season again because it is a show once more. I know, it changes every week here on the SWTS. And then To round out the year like we do every time the third rock from the sun makes its trip around that lovely glowing orange star, we're going to break down our top Star Wars moments of 2023. So, I mean, they could be coming from Bad Batch, Visions, Ahsoka, Mando, Star Wars Celebration, Europe. First time in a few years it was over there. So that's how we're going to close things out. Obviously, fan segment, all that fun stuff. But before we get to all that, like I said last week, we're going to start asking you all to ask us questions. And luckily, the 10 of you that see our posts on Instagram, you still like to play along. So, Nick, if you'll allow me here, I'd like to bring up 2 questions the fans have for us that they would like us to answer. Of course, I'm not prepared and do not have the appropriate Slack channel open, but that's okay. We will get there. All right. So our boy Rippick Tan again, like I said, you can always count on Rippick for catching one of the questions, either question to the fans, which we'll also do this week, or question from fans. And what Rippick is asking us, Nick, did you guys have a good year? How are you celebrating the holidays?
So I'm just going back home to New Orleans for the holidays. I'm leaving on Saturday and won't be back until the 29th. So I'll be out until right before New Year's. And yeah, I mean, 2023 was a decent year. It's, got into the new house, got a new job, and yeah, I mean, had some decent Star Wars stuff to watch, so can't complain about too much. Obviously, there's a shitload anybody can complain about in life, but is it really worth looking back on 2023 about all the stuff that sucked? No, you look back on the stuff that was really cool. So, yeah.
Well, don't worry, Rippick, you got me, Mr. Glass Half Empty. So, unlike Nick, I do like reflecting on shitty things, and 2023 was full of them. At least the second half of it. The first half of 2023 was going pretty well. Wasn't breaking any bones. Felt like a mang, installed a new deck, put in some wood flooring down in SWTS HQ, and then the first week of August hit, and I had my second serious accident on the one wheel, which sent me into one of the darkest depressions I've been in my adulthood. 40s is no joke. It's not a fun time for me right now. I'm trying. And then I did some other shit in life that made my fall not so hot. So I'm ready for 2023 to move on. And like Nick said, I probably should stop reflecting on the shit of it. But one of my worst years, I would say, as a human. So boo hiss yuck on that. And in terms of celebrating the holidays, I'm already off for my 4-week break. So that's great. Hit Top Golf yesterday, played Pebble Beach virtual. That was really fun. It was in the snow even up here in the north. Mm-hmm. But really just hanging low. Mommy's coming up from Florida. It's our turn to get the old bag at Christmas, so that I'm excited for that. But we'll be laying low, hanging with the family, everyone off, enjoying what Mother Earth gives us to make us feel mentally better, and obviously drinking some of the poison that man has made from what Mother Earth has given us to make us, more jovial while also deleting brain cells. So that's my plan. All right, next one here. Okay, that's the wrong arrow there, dummy. All right, next one. Coming from our boy Bat, 2797 Studios. Putting away the one wheel in 2024, question mark. Well, Nick, I'm assuming that's targeted at me because I know.
It seems like it.
I know you didn't reach out when they announced the new one wheel model, the ST, and because you didn't reach out, I figured you weren't looking to buy. So
no,
I still have the one wheel Bat. I actually was just on it this past weekend. I go really, really slow now and mostly just ride it in the grass. So I can't say that I'm going to be putting it away, but I think I've mostly been reduced to riding it like an old white man would ride it versus trying to ride it like a cool white man would ride it. So that's where I'm at with the one wheel at this point in time. Thank you.
There you go.
All right. Good stuff.
Yeah, no one wheeling for me. No worries there.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I can't really recommend them anymore either. They're just too fucking dangerous. But they are fun as shit. All right, Bango, not enough alcohol in the world. That is right. David Chavez, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. Linda's here. Bango, drinking and listen to the Star Wars Time Show. That is the best way to listen to the Star Wars Time Show. I mean, honestly, if I wasn't such a weirdo, this would be a great episode to have a drinking Star Wars Time Show. But because I worry about the way I look too much, I don't want to drink today. So that's that. All right, dude, before we get into Star Wars, I just have a quick little pop culture tidbit to touch on here for fans of the Pop C. Checked out the new Wonka movie last week, the one starring Timothée Chalamet, and short, sweet review. It's fucking awesome. It is as spiritually connected to Gene's Willy Wonka as it gets. I mean, it is everything you could want for in a prequel. It really is a prequel to the Wilder Willy Wonka, which is the Willy Wonka. And don't get me wrong. I actually enjoy the Johnny Depp Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's not bad. It's an interesting take. Tim Burton always is. I like the way the way his mind works. I like his eye and just how he kind of sees cinema. But when you really break things down, Willy Wonka, yes, I know it's based on Roald's book, but it's always been, for me, Gene Wilder. Okay? Mm-hmm. Like that is Willy Wonka. And Nick, the Chalamet-led version captures that essence perfectly. I mean, the song is in there. You know, come and see, blah, blah, blue, yeah. It hits all the nostalgia you could want while being a full-on musical. Do you consider the original Wonka a musical, or it just has some tunes here and there? That
see, that's a hard question. I don't consider it a musical, but like there is, essentially a musical part for every child in that, in the factory. And then obviously the musical ditties that happen prior to getting to the chocolate factory. So there is like a lot of musical moments, but I do think that it doesn't qualify as a musical. Yeah.
So this one I would say does, because yes, it has the singing, but it adds in big dance numbers. Maybe that's the difference. That's what makes a musical. But it doesn't matter. It's fucking fantastic. Timothée Chalamet, I mean, if you've been missing out on this dude, he is a bona fide superstar. It's weird because he is so twinkish, but he works across genres. I mean, he is fantastic as a young Wonka. He's got the dancing down, the singing down, the charisma, the spitting lines like Willie does, kind of nonsensical stuff, making up words. It's just great. Hugh Grant as the Oompa Loompa, fantastic. The kind of the origin story of them is excellent. The story itself and how Willie gets started and his first run-ins with Slugworth and some of the other chocolatiers. I don't know if it could have been done any better. It's a fucking 10 out of 10. Nice. I really, as I was telling Nick before we went live, I might go again tomorrow, not even a week from when I initially saw it when it debuted last Thursday.
Yeah. I mean, that is one movie. Like, Taylor is already out of town. She left yesterday to go overseas to see her parents for Christmas. But that is a movie that we both want to see in theaters, because like I grew up with the Gene Wilder, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I mean, it was fantastic. I still watch it probably once a year to this day, just because, like, while the Johnny Depp one was fun to watch, it just didn't have that like magical quality that the Gene Wilder one had. And like, I can watch that movie at any point and just feel transfixed by it. So I'm definitely excited to see Wonka. It is going to like hit me right in my childhood when I see it, for sure. And yeah, I mean, like, honestly, of everything that has released in theaters recently, that this might be the thing that I'm kind of most excited for. You know, like, it's just, it has everything, that nostalgia that I want from it. And it kind of, you know, I saw an article, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I saw an article was like, well, you know, what made Wonka a box office success versus something like the Marvels? And it's like, to me, that was one of the stupidest headlines I've ever seen, because you're comparing two movies that are so dissimilar from each other, even in their like franchise history, that the article just doesn't even make sense. Like, Wonka has been a movie that doesn't have a ton of like franchise behind it. The last one was made a very long time ago, and it's something that's beloved from, you know, decades ago, that still holds a place in the hearts of people my age or even older. That is like a new fresh take on the franchise that isn't trying to retread what has already been done, like the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie with Johnny Depp did. So I feel like those two movies are just very different. And this one, you know, it being as good as you said, Matt, deserves to have a box office of the type that it's getting now. So I'm super happy to see that it's successful.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't look at how it did last weekend, but it sounds like it's like over $100 million. Fantastic.
Like,
fantastic. You know? And you know what, Nick, that means word of mouth is already kicking in, because I also don't feel like they really heavily promoted this one because of the strike. I mean, it's not like I didn't see Timmy out there all fall pumping it up. I barely saw trailers. Who knows? I could just be missing the shit. But
and right now too, it's like it's a limited release. Like, it's not even. It's in 699 theaters, so it hasn't even hit.
It's barely in the United States.
But $152 million worldwide thus far. So, I mean, I think that it has done well.
And Nick, I feel that they leave it in a place that they could make more in this era without stepping on Gene's film. And like you, I agree. That was the important thing. And as I said, it feels like a natural predecessor to it. It doesn't feel like it's trying to be it, change it, retcon anything. It really is, here's the arrival of Willie after all of his adventures to learn how to make the greatest chocolate in the world. And it's framed in a musical, but that really doesn't matter. I mean, I'll admit it here. I actually kind of dig musicals. I don't know why, but I do.
Yeah, I remember you like The Greatest Showman.
I love The Greatest Showman, dude. It's been a while since I've seen it, and I'm putting that on the holiday watch list along with the 11 Star Wars movies. And you know what? I was also thinking, Nick, I almost feel obligated to watch Harry Potter too, because every movie has like a Christmas punch, right? I mean,
it does have a Christmas. Yeah, most of them have a Christmas scene or something like that. We actually watched the first Harry Potter movie with one of our friends last Friday because she had never seen any of them, and we're like, we're gonna do watch party. We'll come just come over. We'll watch them all in order and see how see what you think about them. And yeah, I think that Harry Potter is a solid holiday watch.
I watched Krampus for the first time over the weekend. I've never watched that one. It was, I wouldn't say super scary, but it's decent. I still need to rewatch Violent Night. It's on Amazon now. That's just it. I'm telling you, if you haven't seen Violent Night yet and you have Amazon Prime, make sure you and the older people in your house watch that. You definitely don't want to play that for the believers,
for the children.
Yeah, I mean, while the magic is still in there, it's pretty fucked up. There's some like John Wick style killing it. Hold on, League Extraordinary Sixers. Thank you very much for that super chat. Happy holidays to you. We appreciate you and we speak your name. Love that. Always appreciate you fans, but none of you fans made our top list of 2023. So. That one guy, Nick, that showed up out of the blue and gave us like $500, he didn't even make the cut, but I did consider it in my choices for the top 5 here.
There you go. There you go. We try to stick to Star Wars content moments.
But no, I appreciate that, League. You've been a nice addition to the SWTS family, as we call it, this past year. You've really kind of been getting involved in the Discord and obviously on the live. So we appreciate and we speak your name.
We appreciate all of our fans. Thank you all for supporting us through the many years that we've been doing this.
That's right. I mean, with these types of donations, I don't have to suck as much dick on the weekend as I used to. Okay? So thank you.
Just to keep everything running.
That's right, man. These servers are expensive, and those IT guys, they like very specific payments. Okay, so yeah, just to put Wonka to bed, it's fantastic. And Nick, I'm assuming you're like me, music moves you, and when you hear the tones and the themes of Pure Imagination, it's hard not to be like, oh, Willie. All right. Really great stuff. Like, I can't. It's probably one of the best. It might be one of my favorite movies of the year, if not the top. It's like Barbie, Oppenheimer, Wonka. There we go.
Nice.
There we go.
Nice.
There we go. All right, let's talk about some Star Wars, considering this is the Star Wars Time show. All right, we'll see you, Big Timmy. Stun Buddy's actually done a project with Timmy and said the guy is a fucking gem of a human. Like,
wow.
Like a real deal pimp. We'll see you again in Dune 2, my friend. All right. So, Nick, a few weeks ago on this show, because we're so creative and we like to give our fans what they want, we did a special topic on, hey, what if Dave Filoni was CCO during the genesis of the sequel trilogy? What sort of suggestions would he have made to the narratives that the various writers and directors were putting forth? And I believe it was you, and I was like, well, I think that's how Colin Trevorrow is running it. But weren't you kind of adamant that Kylo should have stayed as the big bad, right? He should have, after killing Snoke, assuming his mantle, that he should have been the dude. He would have achieved his Vader dreams, right? Wasn't that kind of what you were angling at?
Yeah. If you go back and listen to that, it was definitely like my ideas for Kylo Ren in the 9th movie were more of like him being the head of the First Order and the struggles therein, like him struggling with leadership, him struggling with this massive behemoth of the First Order that is now solely under his control, and really seeing his degradation not only as a Force user but as a person happening right in front of your eyes, and the madness that would come from that. So that was definitely something that I would have liked to see.
It's funny you bring that up, because guess what? That's what some of the creatives and the actor of Kylo Ren wanted to see too. And apparently that was the character's arc until, everything kind of shit the bed here.
Yeah, like what I find very interesting about this, and obviously we'll dive a little bit deeper into it, but like, from what I gather that Adam said, is like this was also JJ's plan too, correct?
Yeah, Nick, so I'll read it and then we can kind of rip it up. But yeah, I'm with you. The he mentions is JJ. That's pretty much what we're all leaning here. So this came up. The reason this came up is like last week, apparently he was on the Rich Eisen show. I thought Rich Eisen was like a sports guy. Who knows? Whatever. He was doing a show on the Roku channel talking to Adam Driver. And of course he asked him about his time on Star Wars, and Adam kind of got pretty honest and laid this out there, and this is what we're reacting to. But before that, because we are hooers, shout out to B-Mad, our biggest contributor of the year, dropping another super chat. We love you, buddy. We really do. All your dedication, all your kind words, your comments. He's saying it's insane how many actors in Star Wars felt like their characters were poorly written but couldn't change anything. Yes. That's what we've been trying to tell you about the prequels, but a lot of you just will not believe it. In fact, I should have brought this up in Discord. I think it was Tones or League shared a really cool supercut of kind of Anakin's journey. And I shit you not, if you watch it, Nick, every clip from the prequels is less than any other clip of Anakin Skywalker. It's just clear. It's audibly clear. You can hear Hayden acting like a dickhead because that's how he was told to act. Then you hear Hayden in Kenobi or Ahsoka, and it's like, oh shit, that's Anakin Skywalker. He doesn't sound like a slapdick. So that's all we've been, or mostly me, just like try to take those rose-tinted prequel glasses off and really analyze the performances versus some of the other films. I mean, shit, the sequels have by far the worst narrative, but probably the best overall acting across the movies. Like, I'm an OT boy, but there's some lazy shit in the OT as well, especially the first one, because the first one at this point in time looks like Nick and I made it for our USC class for $10.
Yeah.
So
the budget on the first one was definitely held it back, which is probably what spurred George to be like, we need to go touch these up.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. I love the movie, and it makes me feel bad to even say this, but it really looks like a fan film at this point in time. Like you can tell George paid for it by himself. And yes, I'm doing my sign of the cross, so I'm not going to get struck down by Sith lightning. But yeah, so it was Tones that shared it. But if you're in our Discord, just with an open mind, go watch that supercut and tell me that the Anakin prequel scenes are of the same quality across the board as any other Anakin scene you see there. It's not even close. That proves our point. Enough said. Moving back to Ben Solo. All right. So Nick, here's what he said. I had an overall arc in mind that he wanted to do. That he, like Nick said, is JJ, which then changed. His idea was almost the opposite journey of Vader, where Vader starts the most confident, the most committed to the dark side, and by the last movie, he's the most vulnerable and weak. And he wanted to start at the opposite, where this character, being Kylo, was the most confused and vulnerable to start, but by the end of the 3 movies would be most committed to the dark side. So essentially, a reverse journey of Vader, to where he goes from unsure of himself to fully committed, like Nick was saying, to being a scion of the dark side.
Yeah. I mean, and you can see that in TFA, that's what that whole moment on the Starkiller Bridge was with Han, the emotional attachment that he still had to his father, the emotional attachment that he still had to his old self, to Ben Solo, and saying, in that scene, like, I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. And that whole scene was to show the tenuous bonds that he still had with his old life, and like, was he ready to fully dedicate himself to the dark side and really embody that as his new path. And, I think that scene was a perfect setup for what that original journey was, envisioned to be. And as, Adam goes on to say, like, I'm not 100% sure that there was any specific derail that happened for that in TLJ.
No, Nick, like, he actually went on to say, he's like, while Ryan shifted the arc a bit, he felt like it was still mostly intact by the end of TLJ. And it was, like, if you think about it, Kylo, more, he was literally, as Nick has been putting out, that he was starting to go nuts. Like, he was getting insane.
And what I guess what is confusing here is, like, okay, like, obviously we know all of the issues that, that sprang from, the writer-director switch for episode 2, and then switch back for episode 8, and then switch back for 9. But, like, I don't know why that storyline in particular, like Kylo's descent into darkness, was shifted. I wonder if that was, like, feedback from executives, or if that was, like, apprehension on JJ's side, or like, what really happened there. Because realistically, JJ comes in this movie and it's a fucking disaster. Like, JJ comes into episode 9.
Because if JJ's the he, Nick, that we think it is, then why didn't he try to continue that? Because, I mean, Kylo was still evil. He told Rey, "Fuck off. I don't want to team up with you. I don't want to be good. I want to be the supreme chancellor and rule the galaxy." So I guess do you think JJ was forced into this?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to be able to tell, because I mean, like, just think of a timeline.
Hold on, Nick. I hate to cut you off, but we got to honor our paying customers here. So, David Chavez, I look forward to your show weekly with a $10 super chat.
Hey,
love you, David.
Thank you so much.
We look forward to you as well, and thank you for the donation. And our boy, a wrencher, Devin, with a happy holidays. We love you, pal. We speak your name. Hoping for a huge 2024 for you. And props if he ever comes back. He's just become too big in the Star Wars universe. He's got a lot going on. He's moved on. But no, I mean, I'm super happy for props. He's achieving life goals that I wish I would have achieved at some point in time. But that dude's going to be in a Star Wars show in the next 5 years, I bet. Guarantee. Mark my words. But thank you, both of you. We spoke your names. All right. Sorry, Nick. Go ahead.
Indeed. But yeah, I mean, the thing for me is, like, where did this derail? I know. Because if we look at, like, timeline wise, I mean, 2017 is when TLJ released. So at that point, Colin was still signed on to direct the next movie. Like, he was, like, when TLJ released,
yes,
it was still Colin Trevorrow and his writing partner that were on TROS, or whatever TROS would have been named. They were on episode 9. And then shortly after the Solo debacle and the outcry from TLJ is when he leaves. And it's at that moment where it's like, oh shit, crunch time, like, who do we get? And then it falls back to JJ. So we all have to remember that, like, TROS was essentially written, filmed, edited, directed, all of that in the period of time between Colin bowing out or being fired, whatever, him leaving, and when TROS comes out. So less than 2 years.
Yeah, I remember. You're right. It did not get 2 years of development like the other movies did. I think, Nick, it might have been 18 months max.
If that, because you have to figure that JJ and Chris Terrio are like, okay, well, we have to write a whole script.
Well, yeah, because they're like, we would never take someone else's writing, even though Colin literally has the movie from start to finish. I mean, everyone remembers the Trevorrow,
the whole script got leaked.
Storyboards and everything. I mean, the dude had a pretty damn good story, in my opinion. But this is where, Nick, I believe Kylo was still going to be hardcore, but this is where I think Colin was thinking about bringing in like some random Sith from the middle of space that, like, nobody had ever heard of. So maybe that's where JJ and Terry were like, if
it's like, maybe we can do a version of it.
Yeah, okay. That's I'm trying to take the long way around, but maybe that's where it's like, oh well, Colin was still going to have this, but we'll just make it somehow Palpatine return.
Yeah, so I mean, as much as, TROS deserves the guff that it gets, I do think that it's like, well, you try to write and direct and do post and, like, essentially make a movie, make a $250 million budget movie in less than 2 years with no notice.
Yeah.
Like, it's a hard task. And I'm not saying that he should, like, whatever, like that it's forgivable or anything like that. But we do have to remember all of the bullshit. And not only that, like, the Carrie Fisher angle of it, that's still passing away.
That's still the biggest fucking thing. I mean, that is that we all forget about that, but and who knows? Maybe we'll get a second helping of it if Dave does get to make more Ahsoka with Rey's passing. But when you have a main character die of that ilk, I mean, she is Star Wars royalty, literally in universe and out of universe. It's impossible to ever get back to where you wanted to go.
And I mean, you have to imagine too, like you said, main character. And we're not saying main character because Leia was the main character in the OT. No, episode 9 was supposed to be her movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she's no longer there. And Luke Skywalker's dead. And Han Solo's dead. And I'm sure that after Han fell down that shaft and in Starkiller Base, Harrison Ford was like, I'm done, baby.
Sweet.
No more calls from Star Wars ever again. And then, of course, he makes his cameo back in episode 9. And, Mark has to do some work for episode 9 as well. So that movie was just, honestly, if you listen to all of our podcasts leading up to it, like, we were trying to be as hopeful as possible. We're like, man, it's going to be great.
Even
like,
after we read the whole script, we're like, oh, okay, yeah it's good.
And then, all the while knowing well that this movie was almost a disaster from the beginning, just given all of the issues with it. Your writing and directing team drops out less than 2 years before it's supposed to come out. Your second or third lead in this movie passes away prior to development. It was doomed from the moment that Colin left, and it was really in a bad spot from the moment that Carrie passed. And really, I just don't know. It's like, it feels like JJ got in there. He was like, I have to come up with something, but all of this shit has changed. So what do I do? And then he probably had people in his ear, either it being executives or outside influences, just being like, well, just bring it back to Palpatine. Just bring it back to Palpatine where it all started. And, it's really hard to really figure out what happened at that point.
I'm with you. I do think someone ultimately kind of put the thumb on him, like, hey, dude, narratively this is dumb, but it'll get a fan pop, and hey, Ian's free, fuck it, do it.
Yeah, so
punch it up.
I mean,
it's a shame. I mean, I feel like we've been revisiting the sequels more than we usually do this past month or so, but it's just like, it's a shame. That's all you can say about it. Everything about it is a shame, because there was so much potential to close out the Skywalker saga on just an amazing note, and for all the dumb decisions, we got what we got. And it's all we can do is listen to people like Adam Driver tell us about what was supposed to be, and
what could have
pretend
been.
Finn leading an army on Coruscant, yay. Oh, that didn't happen. Oh, somehow Palpatine returned though, yay. All right,
I mean, who knows what
are you gonna do? Oh, the Lord of Thane showing up. What up, David Chavez? Nice. Thank you again, Lord of Thane. Welcome. Okay.
All right.
Now,
enough lamenting.
Yeah, I was going to say,
the...
this guy, our next story, Dave Filoni, he's going to be in the next issue of Empire, so we got a tease of it today, Nick. And I guess in the issue, maybe he dives a little bit deeper into his plans for live-action Thrawn. But as we said a few weeks ago, if Dave was around in his CCO role way back in 2013-14, we wouldn't be having these conversations. Adam Driver wouldn't be going on Rich Eisen's show saying, oh, yeah, hey, my character got completely fucked up. But hey, whatever. I got through it. I'm still acting, so it didn't kill my career. Life is good. But Filoni, as I said in this new article, Nick, he just kind of talking about the future of some of his characters now that they've been brought over to live action. In particular, Thrawn and Our Lady in Green. But he kind of teased some somewhat obvious narrative threads that we're probably going to see in the Mandoverse, be it Mando Season 4 or if Ahsoka gets a second season. But kind of what he is setting up here for your boy Tic-Tac-Toe Thrawn. Remember, over here he's Tic-Tac-Toe Thrawn. Live-action Thrawn is not 4D chess. He's Tic-Tac-Toe.
He could never reach that level.
That's right.
In live action.
But anyways, we remember, and this is coming from Dave, all right? Remember that this Captain Pelion was set up in Mandalorian Season 3. Nick and I were super intelligent, and we're like, hey, that's not just for fun. Okay, that's called building layers. You're going to go somewhere with this. And sure enough, that's exactly where Dave's starting out here. Dave says, we set up Captain Pelion in The Mandalorian, and that's a character that goes with Thrawn. So I'd love to see the two of them together, which, it's, like I said, I mean, I'm not a reader of the books. Words and shit aren't my thing, but I do know that Paleon was established an heir to the Empire as one of Thrawn's right hands. So it's always made complete sense that in the Mandoverse, these two are going to link up. I mean, hell, Paleon was stumping for Lost Thrawn back in the Mandoverse. And we'll come back to this, Nick, because Lars has a quote that makes sense for the character and what's happening with the Empire during this era. So, like I said, Lars had a quote in this piece, and he says, you know, what's Thrawn going to be doing now that he's back in the known galaxy? And he says, straighten out all the others and tidy up the shop. I could imagine something in terms of a power play within the Empire. So I think in you know, we did our Ahsoka season 2, if it's going to happen, breakdown. We kind of talked about it. It's going to make a ton of sense for Paleon, Thrawn to seek each other out initially, and that they probably will try to exert their vision on the Shadow Council, and it sounds like even Lars is kind of in that headspace right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like you said, these characters have been linked together since, you know, old EU times, and now with the inclusion of Paleon in live action Star Wars, it was pretty obvious like where this was going. What I will say is, like, you know, at the end of Mandalorian season 3, like you and I discussed, like is you know, Gideon really dead? Like is Moff Gideon really off the table? And honestly, like, given what we know now and like where we're sitting in the Star Wars galaxy, I don't feel like there's enough time to both address the kind of recombining of forces between Paleon and Thrawn, and also deal with this potential outlier, like this potential, like, you know, gum in the gears of Gideon wanting to be the leader of the Imperial Remnant, and then Thrawn having to kind of deal with him and then moving forward. I almost feel like the Gideon angle of this may not be as large as we once thought, even though we do have some hints from Giancarlo that there may still be, you know, versions of Gideon still out there. I just find it hard to figure out, like, okay, well, if we're working with a limited time, like we have Mando season 4, we have Ahsoka season 2, and then essentially we have like, okay, it's crossover time, baby. It's big movie time. And then like where in that time period do you really have to have the opportunity to deal with a Gideon coming back, unless he just, like, you know, welcomes himself back into the fold and falls in line under Thrawn?
I think that's how it would go if it happens, and it would probably be during the Mandalorian run, since he is a Mandalorian villain. To me, Nick, it would be, I don't really see the council giving Thrawn much of any gruff outside of Gideon, to be honest.
Exactly.
So even Lars saying here, like, in terms of a power play, that's the only thing that leads me to believe that they are going to have something play out between these two.
It can't be anything like long tail. Like,
no,
unless they literally take, like you said, they take Mandalorian season 4 and they're like, okay, this is what we're going to do in Mandalorian season 4. We're going to have Thrawn essentially, you know, like Lars says, you know, straighten out,
exactly,
and tidy up shop.
Exactly.
You know?
But then, like, at the end, Gideon's going to come in and almost fuck it up.
Yeah, something like that, or like,
or challenge.
Straightening up and tidying up is like, is Thrawn immediately being like, hey, you, the guy that I know is going to try to fuck with me, I'm going to straighten you out first.
Okay, yeah.
And then everything else will fall in line after that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it's a huge Imperial thread. It could be something resolved in probably an episode or two. You just like, Gideon shows up, tries to flex, and at that point, Thrawn's just like, nah, dude, listen, like, I'm back. I'm the smart one, or at least that's what people used to tell me when I was in the books. So listen to me, pal. You tried, you fucked up. So now it's my turn. Something like that.
Yeah, I think that would be how that would work out.
And really, the last little tease here for the future of the Mandoverse from Mr. Filoni is Dave kind of sets up who his biggest foe is going to be outside of potentially other Imperials, because we know they're not all just going to play along. But I don't know. I don't think this should be surprising to people, but here's what Dave said. Who Thrawn's biggest foe is going to be in the future of the Mandoverse. His foil throughout Rebels was Hera. Pitting the two generals against one another is something that I find interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't raise any alarm bells for sure.
It really was. Like, if you go back, I know a lot of us, we just go right to the finale and Ezra's big sacrifice, but, Hera was captured before. He was always trying to take out Hera because he knew she was kind of the glue for the Phoenix Squadron, or the Ghost Crew a la Phoenix. So, yeah, I mean, all that makes sense. You would think that... And we kind of put this out there, though. I mean, Ezra could kind of get into his own thing, maybe looking for Force users or putting most of his time into trying to figure out a way to get Sabine and Ahsoka back. So it does sound like we're going to have green versus blue. Those are going to be the main figureheads, with the underlings kind of doing the side narratives and whatnot.
Agree. Yeah.
You just wonder, so. Do you think the New Republic is going to give Hera shit still, though, because of it's the New Republic?
Before I get to that, huge shout out Nova Toymation with the super chat donation.
What's going on today? This is crazy.
Nova Toymation says, thanks for another year of laughs and great conversations. Looking forward to more SWTS in 2024. Well, there will be plenty more. Thank you so much, Nova.
You know what it is,
for your donation.
Nick, I almost feel like we're service workers and we're getting our tip at the end of the year, like garbage men or doormen, or if you're in a city and you have a parking garage attendant. I like it. I like this. This is fun.
Yes, thank you so much.
We're gonna do another show next week. Just keep,
like,
while everyone's feeling festive, let's just keep running shows.
That's right.
Holy shit!
You, Nova.
Revenues are off the charts in December, Nick. What's going on here? That's right. Awesome. Love you, Nova, and also the Stern Show connection with a few of you. I know Nova's a big one too. So,
so yeah, I mean, like, so back to what I was saying and what you asked me, like, can the New Republic really say, Hera, you're full of shit anymore? It's like, at this point, it's kind of hard to do that. I know that the only option is, like, if they are going to give her any sort of guff, it would have to be right in the beginning, because of Thrawn's location where he came back in, Dathomir. Dathomir is typically not a planet that is heavily surveyed by the New Republic, or like the good side of the Star Wars universe. So maybe they wouldn't be immediately aware of his re-entrance right away, but like, you would imagine that as soon as they lay eyes on Ezra, as soon as Ezra is corroborating everything that Hera says, and if they even put an ounce of energy into like verifying these stories, then it's like, okay, well, we can't, like, us giving you shit, Hera, is out the window. Like, it can't be done.
If Xiono gives her shit, he should just be shot in the head and kicked out an airlock. I know that's overdoing it, but that's a guy that needs killed twice.
Yeah, I mean, we know that Xiono sticks around until, the TFA timeline into the sequel trilogy, but like, his tune has to change pretty quickly now that the Chimera has successfully made its way back into the known universe. Yeah,
I want to get like a hollow and be like, see it? Do you see it now? Do you see it now, Xiono? Is this good enough evidence for you?
Yeah,
pussy,
come on,
you soft sack of shit, you non-fighter. So yeah, it's just I like you were asking us. It would be nice to know where Dave is thinking to place these. I mean, if it's in the Mandoverse, obviously he would have had to have worked with John. If it's all Ahsoka, that's more on him. But I do feel like we definitely need the Mando season 4, and I also think we need another season of Ahsoka before we get the big crossover. I think the other season of Ahsoka could potentially be turned into a movie better than Mandalorian season 4, but I would still prefer a show. we'll just have to see how it plays out. But I'm with you. There's a lot of pieces to still be moved in place before we can have this end game to close out the era.
Exactly. I mean, we have to see essentially what would be like the reformation of the Imperial Remnant, like coming under one leader again, and that leader is Thrawn. Like Lars said, tidying up the shop. So if there's any outliers in terms of those, regional types of warlords, a la Gideon, if there's any other out there that may want to challenge
Enoch's
Thrawn's
coming
rule,
for you.
Then we can see that play out in the Mandalorian season 4. And then on the Ahsoka side of things, it probably is going to be primarily focused on like, hey, how do we get the rest of the crew back in, because we have a big fight on our hands now.
And that little thing that Balin was looking for.
That Balin.
that tiny plot thread that is wide open now. Oh, yeah.
So,
I mean, you need a season just for that shit. So let's hope for the best. Really what it comes down to, watch as much new Star Wars content as quickly as possible when it hits Disney Plus. We got to make Bob Iger feel warm and fuzzy and all special inside about his investments, even though it's not his money. It's the company's money that it's made, and it should be invested wisely into properties that are going to give you the best bang for your buck. Clearly, I mean, dude, Marvel is ultra fucked now. Jonathan Majors, I don't know if anyone saw that, but he got, so now it's official. I think they've officially finally fired him from the role as Kang. And Kang was literally the Thanos of phase 4, 5, and 6. So don't worry, they already asked John Boyega and he told them to go fuck themselves.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, Marvel, like I said last time, Marvel needs to take an extended hiatus. Like, Marvel needs a full break, at least a year, more than likely 2 years, with no theatrical releases. And you need to sit down and you need to figure out what your vision of the Marvel future is, because I'm going to tell you right now, like, The Marvels is not going to be the only box office disaster that you have with that franchise if you don't reset, if you don't take the time to put thoughtful work into this franchise moving forward. And, I think that the time off that Star Wars has had, I mean, granted, it's not true time off because there has been a steady a steady timeline of releases. Even after the 2019 movie release with Tross, we've still had content coming out every year since then. But there has been a relative pause on the Star Wars cinematic universe that has given
4 years, buddy. 4 years today, I think.
4 years today. I do think that is accurate. And it's given the executives and the creatives and the people in charge of the Star Wars cinematic universe time to really reassess and understand, like, where do we want to take this universe moving forward, and like, what is our 5 and 10 year plan? Because that's kind of what you need for what has now become standard for franchise films, being a cinematic universe. I think that Marvel did a good job with that for phases 1 through
10 years. It was 10 years for phase 1 through 3. It was 2008 to 18.
So they had a good 10-year plan and it executed perfectly.
Yep.
Their next 10-year plan, not so good.
Awful.
Not so good.
Fucking terrible. So, like, you burn up all the goodwill at this point in time. I mean, I'm a sucker. I still go to these, but it's not the event that MCU movies used to be. I mean, I no longer have to worry about ordering tickets early. I know I could get tickets day of, and it's still going to be empty theaters. I also know that I'm not going to be blown away. I'm probably not going to experience a lot of emotions because we don't have the through line through all these movies anymore. It's very scatterbrained. But I'll tell you what, dude. I think the next Star Wars movie could literally be, Star Wars, rock, paper, scissors. and it's going to make $1 billion, because I don't know how you're feeling, but the 4 years has already been long enough that I am jonesing to go see a Star Wars project at a movie theater. So whatever that is going to be, now it's probably back to the Daisy movie. I'll be there day one. I think it's going to sell out. I think it's going to kill the box office, just because what you're saying with the whole absence makes the heart grow stronger type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, my fingers are crossed, and everything that happens. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure.
You think really even the wait is not going to be enough to get people to see Star Wars again?
I don't think it is, because I mean, you're working in a landscape where, like, getting anybody to go to a movie theater now is like pulling teeth. Like, even for huge releases.
What if Timothée Chalamet is in it as Wonka?
So that's what I was going to say. Is like previously in Star Wars land, like you could make shit that had people that you didn't know in it, and that's kind of how Star Wars was from the beginning. I mean, you know, none of the people in the original trilogy, aside from Alec Guinness, and then you had a little bit of panache behind you with Carrie Fisher because of her parents, but like Mark Hamill, an unknown. Harrison Ford was literally a carpenter on fucking, you know, like on movie sets that George Lucas was like, I want you to be in this film, you know, American Graffiti, boom. And then he comes into Star Wars, and then he turns into the biggest actor of that time. And then if you look at the prequels, I mean, Hayden Christensen was in Hollywood, but he was a relative unknown, like was getting good buzz for his acting for films like Life as a House and stuff like that prior. And then your biggest actor in that film was probably or in the prequel trilogy was probably Ewan McGregor coming into it, aside from, you know, Ian McDiarmid coming back as Palpatine, but he's a holdover from the original trilogy.
God damn it.
Liam Neeson, yes. Liam Neeson definitely was a name, but he was also in and out.
Well, even Ewan, I mean, Ewan's biggest movie prior was Trainspotting, right?
Trainspotting, yeah.
Which honestly was still kind of nichey. It wasn't like some... It was very indie. I mean, this is before Natalie Portman really blew up, you know, like this is before Black Swan. This is before all of her, she had just done the Professional or something like that with...
Yeah, Leon the Professional. So like... And if you look at the sequels again, like Oscar Isaac was your biggest star. I mean, nobody knew John Boyega. He had done some stuff, some like smaller projects, Attack the Block, and Daisy Ridley was essentially an unknown. Like she had spots on TV shows and stuff like that, but nothing big. Oscar Isaac was like your big guy, and even for him, I mean, he was in like Ex Machina, which was again like a more of like an artistic film, very well received. I love when he starts dancing, doing his creepy dance towards the end, right? He's like, I mean, it was a fantastic movie, but nobody knew him. Now movies are made by the people who are in them, like people like because our culture and our general stance towards like popularity is based off of the influencer culture and who is in it and who's behind it and what name is in it. I mean, that's why this Wonka popped off for sure, is because of Chalamet, you know? And I think that Star Wars may be considering now, like, do we put somebody in it that just garners the attention? Because I don't know if, like, we're at a point now to where the brand itself does not hold the cachet that it once did. You know,
you're making an interesting point. I got to remind you about The Mandalorian season 3 and some of its cameos that backfired a bit on the fan base. But
it's TV. I'm going to tell you right now, it's TV. Okay. Like the people who watch TV are us. Like we're the people who watch TV, and people like us are going to complain about the Jack Blacks and the Lizzos and stuff like that.
White men are angry. You are correct.
Like, but it's not even just the white men of it. It's the privileged Star Wars fans who feel like, well, you are degrading my Star Wars by putting these people in it. And it's like, dude, you're in somebody's fucking basement. And like what you need to realize is that like if we take a hard look at the Star Wars cinematic universe over the last 20 years, and we go back to 03. 03 is post AOTC, right before ROTS comes out. Star Wars is not looking great, man. Like, people are complaining. People can see now that the prequel trilogy is not paying out to what they expected it to be, and it's a little weird. So now, if you look at the Star Wars universe in 2023, you had the OT, which is unquestionably the best trilogy out of all of them. It's not even close. And then you have
Thank you for saying that.
Your theatrical releases are the prequel trilogy, universally panned, and now 20 years later, just starting to get love from the people who grew up with it. And then you had 2 movies from Disney that released, TFA and Rogue One, that released to general critical acclaim and fan praise. And then everything after that, people shit on. So it's not like Star Wars has this cachet of being like this untouchable reputation.
Yeah,
like,
all right. Well, you convinced me.
Releases,
I'm going to be the only one waiting in line.
The most recent theatrical releases just didn't do it for people. And it's not like it was like a one-off thing that people didn't like. I'm talking about a 20-year history of movies that have come out that like fans and critics alike have been mixed on. So it's not like people are thinking of it, you know, like back when episode 1 came out, even back when AOTC came out, where it's like, well, everything has been a banger from Star Wars, so this is going to be a banger too. Like, that's not the feeling around it anymore. And if that's how they're approaching this, is that like, oh, well, we're hitting theaters again, so the $1 billion is coming back. Like, they really need to reassess how the brand is looked at now. You know, like, it's like now you have people complaining about the TV shows. It's not even like the TV shows are all sunshine and rainbows from the critics and from the fans. Like, people are mixed about the TV shows.
What a fan base to be a part of.
Understand. But that's every fan base. Like, there's no fan base that isn't like that.
We are like sports fans. There's no, like, any sports fans that ever tries to down talk a geek or a nerd, just remind them they're doing the same shit. Yeah,
it's like you're talking about this running back's yards per carry, yards after it's first hit stat. It's like, you're a fucking loser nerd too,
theirs
dude.
is a little more rooted in reality, I guess. But, you know, fans will be like, my team or the guys did this. Like, hey, and I'm a nut job sports fan too, so I ain't ripping on them. So, I also don't like geeks are like, oh, sports and throwy ball stuff. That you sound like a jerk off when you say that type of stuff.
Yeah, it's like,
just be like, I don't like sports. You don't have to be like, you're gonna go watch the ball sport. Oh, is that where they steal bases? And clearly they know what football's about. They're just trying to be a fucking dickhead. So it goes both ways.
But yeah, people. I mean, all that to say that I am hopeful that when Star Wars comes back into theaters, that it can recapture that like $1 billion magic that like somehow made it all the way through TROS. And I mean, like, TROS made like. It crossed $1 billion. I think it made 1.1 worldwide.
It was the lowest.
It was the lowest, other than Solo. Obviously, Solo was the lowest.
You're probably right. Just the state of the world and how things are going. I mean, there's a chance we won't even have movie theaters in America in 2025. So
yeah, I mean,
who knows?
You know, like it truly needs to be an event, and like
I'm gonna be locked
because
up.
Of the time off. Like, the time off will definitely help give it that event feel to it, but like, you have to look at the brand value now, and I hope that's what they're doing. I hope they're assessing the brand value.
The time off, but yeah, you laid out some good cases on why my nostalgia is probably blinding me yet again.
I mean, all of us are going to go see it. That's for sure. I mean, like, you know, the people who watch the TV shows are going to go see the movies. That is for sure going to happen. But is that $1 billion? No,
like you've been saying, Star Wars can't keep getting new shiny things if it's just people like us supporting it. That's what Nick is saying. It needs a larger appeal. Is that bringing in Tay-Tay as a Twi'lek like we've pitched on this humble little show? Or Timothy Chalamet as a rebel hero? Or a dark side user? Who knows? But if 2025 is still the date, they better get to shooting sooner than later, or that's now going to be pushed back as well. Because like Nick said with Trust, they're already looking at the less than 18 month or just about type of release window. All right. Speaking of stupid shit in Star Wars. You remember last week we were telling you the Hot Mic podcast is like, oh yeah, no, Mandalorian's going to be a movie, even though we didn't think it was going to be a movie when Making Star Wars said they were thinking about making it a movie. Well, we're back to this shit. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here spinning out in the mud because it's just getting stupid at this point in time. It's like, who can get the dumber scoop first? So this is coming from our friends over at Bespin Bulletin, and what they're saying is like, look, according to our sources, that shit last week, that's bogus. Mandalorian Season 4, it's staying as a TV show. It's not going to absorb any Ahsoka Season 2 plot points like we know Season 3 absorbed some of the Ranger stuff. And what else? It's going to start shooting, I think, February of 24.
Yeah.
So
February 24th.
For people that get into that type of news, which it seems to be a lot of people because that's all that is on Reddit leaks and they get upvoted left and right. There we are. There's this week's spin on The Mandalorian Season 4. So we're back to a TV series, shooting within the next month or two, probably still releasing, like we told you many moons ago, in 2025.
Yeah.
And no, you're probably also not going to see Homeboy's face. It'll be just like Season 3 where he gets paid a ton to do some voice work.
Yeah. I mean, the idea, like, and this is what I was saying last week, it's like, feasibly, could they turn it into a movie? Yes. It's going to cost you more money, though. Like, it's going to be more money to make the movie, but you have the potential to make more money off of a movie. But the problem is right now, like, the problem isn't the fact that, like, they're worried about making money. The problem is they're worried about spending too much money, so that it makes sense that they wouldn't dedicate themselves to a minimum $400 million investment on a film. Like, they're just not going to do that right now, especially when the numbers of people viewing The Mandalorian, the property that they were going to make the movie off of, are in decline. Like, you're not going to be like, so what have we seen since The Mandalorian has released? Okay, so all right, Season 1, great numbers. Season 2, good numbers, slight decrease. Season 3, more of a decrease. You know what it's time for? A movie. Like, that's just, I don't think that they're thinking that way right now.
Well, Nick, you also got to, I would imagine marketing costs for a TV show are significantly less than a movie.
Significant.
Like not even in the same ballpark. Because
I mean, if you think about it, the only marketing that they've done for their TV shows have been on their owned properties.
Right.
Their owned properties, I mean.
Yeah, social
ESPN,
media.
ABC, socials.
Yeah.
Like, the stuff that is under the Disney umbrella. So, like, when Andor released on Hulu, it wasn't like, oh, look what Disney made a deal with Hulu. It's like, no. Disney owns Hulu. Right. Like, so it's not like I don't think people going out there
understand how much they spend on marketing for a film. I mean, sometimes it's just as much as the movie. I mean, you be spending $150 to $250 million just to market it, especially if you're trying to bring it overseas to capture the Asian audience.
Yeah, and there's a whole lot that goes just into the overseas. You have to find it. I mean, like, I'm sure that Disney has their own overseas distribution at this point, or they have a partner for it. But yeah, you have to recut all of your trailers. You have to get voiceover in those languages. You have to get those out on those channels that are popular in those countries. It's a lot of work. You have to figure that if you have a $200 million budget for your film, your marketing budget is probably at least $100 million.
Easy. Because I was always like, well, Solo had to have made like $10 million if you look at its box office take versus its costs. But then they factor in the marketing, and nope. You can see how the cost goes from $250 million to like $500 million. It's like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why Solo making, like, for us, we look at Solo and it's like, oh, it made $350 million. It made almost $400 million worldwide. It's like,
Right.
yeah, but we also heard that the budget for that movie ballooned to like $250 million because of all the issues that they had with the filming. They had to replace the director and all this shit. So it had like a $250 million plus just for production. That's not even cost for marketing. Like the movie probably lost at least $10 million,
right,
if not more. Like, so. Yeah,
oh, well.
tough.
So this week, Mandalorian season 4 is still coming to Disney Plus.
Yeah. And then next week it'll be a made-for-TV movie that comes out on Hallmark. Like,
exactly. Or no,
people are going to say
straight
next week.
to the bin at Walmart, B movie type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, it's time to have some fun. Or maybe you could argue that this is going to make you sad as we are going to start waxing poetic about Star Wars in 2023. Sadly, I don't think we got as much Star Wars as was initially planned thanks to the strike, but luckily for those that went on strike, took one for the team. Hopefully it's better for creatives across the galaxy. But as we do every year, we are now going to recap our top, best, immaculate, whatever you want to call them, Star Wars moments of 2023. We timed it perfectly, Nick, because StarWars.com just dropped their best, so they had a nice graphic I could steal from them to use. So we have 16. That's how many we came up with, and at the end, just like we did last week, we will give you our personal top 5s, because I know as humans, we can't just generally talk about things and agree on it. Someone has to be right. Someone has to rank a list. All right? But first, we're just going to go through the 16. Like I said, get a little nostalgic about the year. Hear which ones might be pissing Nick off. Maybe you'll get some insights into which ones made his top 5. But for a year that like I saw the action get cut short with the strikes, I still felt like it was a decent year for Star Wars across these genres. I'm talking gaming, books, film, TV, animation. It's been a decent year.
Yeah.
Business moves. You never know what's going to be on the list. So as we go through the 16, these aren't in any sort of order. As you'll see, they kind of follow the year timeline. That's just how my brain works. All right. We ready here? Give us our
drum roll.
There you go. I don't know what that was, but it's time to begin. Here we go. B-Mad's already getting in there, dropping his best moment. Ahsoka versus Anakin. Will it be on our list? Nobody knows. That's why you got to stay tuned in for the next hour or so as we go through the 16 top Star Wars moments of 2023. All right, beginning with, Nick, we have a sad one. Okay.
We do.
And it happened early in the year. It happened in the penultimate episode of Bad Batch Season 2. And if you don't know what we're talking about, you are a commie and don't consume all Star Wars content because you think you're above animated Star Wars. Because we are discussing one of the most emotional Star Wars moments of 2023. And that is when Tech gives the order for Plan 99, which essentially means I'm sacrificing myself so you cocksuckers can live to win another day. So the first top moment for us, Bad Batch Season 2, Tech's sacrifice.
Super good moment. I mean, it was right at the beginning of the year too, so having something like that as like the finale for Bad Batch Season 2 really set a good tone for the rest of the year. And really, like, to me, like this moment was I mean, better than a lot of the live action moments. Just being honest, I mean, I feel like this was something that was very powerful, especially for those characters and for this arc and the story being told. Super, super strong moment for sure.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, I know it's a cartoon, but this elicited real life feels in me, and I think it's because Tech had, and please keep him dead. Please keep him dead. Please. Because if you don't, you're going to negate what I'm about to say. But I believe Tech had one of the most earned deaths in all of Star Wars. And if you think about it, a lot of season 2 was about building up the character of Tech, taking him from a protocol droid of a clone into a somewhat emotionally intelligent, caring clone. And a lot of that was done via his relationship with Omega, them getting kind of marooned in that cave system, talking about their problems with Echo leaving. Tech really just became a full-fledged character in this season, and just as we were starting to get to know him better, he punches us in the gut by sacrificing himself for his squad. So it was a beautiful death, and probably the biggest emotional moment in Star Wars this year, if you think about it.
Yeah. I mean, I hate that we have to say, I hope they don't bring him back, because that has become such a trend in Star Wars that it's infuriating at this point.
I feel like it's going to happen, and I hate it. I just hate it.
And it's like, and I feel that way too, because the way he died is the way that every character who died has come back, where it's like they fall into an abyss you don't actually see.
And I know
they
had his goggles, but his goggles could have flown off, and I mean,
yeah, and it's also like, and that they're probably like, one of the ideas is probably like, oh, they're gonna take, the Empire's gonna take his body and they're gonna turn it, whatever, some bullshit, like use it for the cloning program or some crap, like turn him, like fix him and turn him back against his buddies. And like, ultimately, while shit like that was interesting, in the past, I think it's been overdone, and it needs to not happen in this instance.
Just leave him dead. I mean, we already saw the effect of him dying had on the remaining squad. They all just were like, fuck it, we got to save our guy. They were so screwed by it, they let Omega get captured. I mean, a lot of bad shit happened at the end of Bad Batch Season 2, and it all kind of kicked off with his sacrifice, and he needs to stay dead. It's just going to feel much more
satisfying.
Exactly.
It's like satisfying is a shitty word to use for this, but it will feel more satisfying knowing that like that moment meant something.
100%. 100%.
Like that moment, if it turns into another, fucking Darth Maul thing where it's like, oh well, he's dead, but he's not dead.
Well, shit,
or
man.
the Palpatine shit, like all of it.
It would be similar to how they kind of ripped the rug out of Vader's sacrifice with somehow Palpatine returned. That's exactly what we're talking about. Like you could cheapen Tech's death by doing something similar. So please don't.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So just no more. Like from here on out, from December 19th, 2023, Star Wars should no longer do the death fake out. You've done it too many times. It's played out. Every time somebody dies in Star Wars now, people are like, oh, well, they'll probably come back.
Or they're just like, a Force ghost, so no big deal.
Yeah. So, make death mean something.
Be mad. Be mad saying he thinks Tech is really dead. Be mad. I hope you are right. I can't trust Star Wars writers anymore. So you never know. It's like no one's allowed to be dead. I guess it makes people too sad. Who the fuck knows?
It's a fear. They do it out of a fear of losing that character, because they're like, well, once that character's dead, we can never use them again. Right. Even though, like, there are plenty of ways that you can use a dead character. You just don't have to bring them back to life. Like,
just talk really about them. They don't need to. They don't need to be.
Or hey, original characters. That's a cool idea too, right?
Yeah, that's strange.
New and original.
All right. So Tech's death, first one. Up next, live action Mythosaur. Seeing the Mythosaur for the first time. I think this was episode 3 of Mandalorian season 3. Din, bunker boy, he's in there getting his bath and then just disappears, sinks to the bottom like a lead weight, and then Lady Bo comes in. And as she is coming up, her spotlight hits the eye of the Mythosaur.
Yeah. I mean, this to me was a monumental moment because the Mythosaur has been a part of the Star Wars landscape for so long. I mean, this isn't a new creation of the new canon. Like, the Mythosaur legends have gone back, decades at this point. And always being attached to the Mandalorian culture, whether it be through Boba Fett as it was first introduced to us via the mythosaur symbol on his armor, to all of the stories that were told in the old EU, to the obvious stories that are being told now. I mean, this was something that was like, will we ever see it? Like, well, are we ever going to see a mythosaur in real life? And then to see it, and then to hopefully see it, you know, in an even more grand stature in Mandalorian season 4 or the properties to come after. I mean, it was a huge moment for sure.
Yeah, see, I mean, obviously it's on the list. I think for this year, it had to be on the list. I think where my lack of like, oh, yeah, Mythosaur comes from me just not really being in the legends, or, you know, the thinking he was Bozo Fett before he earned his Boba Fett title. And as Nick teased at the end, I was expecting a lot more Mythosaur than what we actually got. So it was a nice little tease. Definitely a big moment for live action Star Wars. But I'm with Nick. I hope it's not just an underwater scene. I you know, if Thrawn shows up to fuck with Bo on Mandalore, I want to see these motherfuckers out there being ridden and used in battle.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, I really do hope that we get something like that, something like the Mythosaur in battle. I mean, we already had like one legendary Star Wars creature, you know, brought to life through the Mandalorian with the Crate Dragon. I think that they've done a really good job of like setting us up for hopefully that eventual, like, oh man, this was so fucking cool. Like, we finally get to see the Mythosaur in all of its glory, and like if it plays a pivotal part in this crossover film where you have, you know, the Mandalorians battling with this massive Mythosaur amongst their army, I mean, versus the forces of Thrawn and potentially Abeloth. I mean, that would be some really
man,
awesome
it'd be like
stuff.
some Lord of the Rings shit, you know, like the trolls coming in that the orcs are riding or something like that. It would be a visual spectacle. So I'm with you. Definitely a big moment for the year. I hopefully we get a bit more payoff down. Oh shit! I saw your cat was fucking with you, and now here comes mine. Leia, you get that little stinky Twinkie down. You know, so I don't know, like if you have any girl cats. I do, and she is fixed, but every once in a while we call it stinky Twinkie time. Because there's an odor that comes out of her rear end that I've never smelled on a boy cat. So I can only imagine there's still something that these poor little felines have to deal with. Anyways, sorry about that. The Mythosaur. So up next we have Paz's Last Stand. So if we all remember, at least for me, the penultimate episode of Mandalorian Season 3 was the banger of the season. This is when you know, the Mandalorians are back. They make their attack on Gideon's base, and they realize that they've been duped. And to kind of give them a chance to get out of the trap, Paz locks himself behind the door and takes on 3 Praetorian guards, and ultimately falls to their purple vibro shits.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely a super memorable scene from that particular episode, the last, or the penultimate, like you said, second to last episode of Mandalorian Season 3. Emotional. I mean, we had like, Paz went through such a journey. It's like you hate him when you first meet him. You still kind of hate him when he comes back in and he's still giving shit to Din. And then you start to love him, especially with the fatherhood storyline that we got in Mandalorian Season 3, all of that stuff, and then the ultimate sacrifice. I mean, it was a good death for the big 100%.
Man, sure. Like I said, it was earned, and as Nick said, very similar to Tech, Paz had dedicated character growth in Season 3. He really did, and that's why his death felt the way it felt. If he just stayed angry Paz, I don't like Din, who cares? None of we would have been like, so what? But because he kind of showed that, all right, he's not just some big angry lug. This dude actually does care and has a value and belief system. His sacrifice just hit 10 times harder. So Paz's death on our list for top Star Wars moments in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Up next, we're sticking with Mandalorian, but we have Bo reclaims and reunites Mandalore. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it is a moment. It's a moment that kind of took a full season to get there, but that's kind of what we're getting at. Just seeing Bo's another character that had fantastic growth in season 3. She went from pouting on her throne to reclaiming Mandalore, not only with purebreds, but the nut jobs. So she won over the cult as well. So really, Bo's journey was a top moment.
Yeah, I mean, up to this point, like her full character arc has now been kind of fulfilled, you know, like from meeting her the first time in the Clone Wars until now her being the one to reunite the clans, to reclaim the Darksaber and lead the, I guess it would be the retaking of Mandalore from the Imperial Remnant forces and starting efforts to make Mandalore home of the Mandalorian people again. Like that was kind of her arc from when we first met her, and now that arc has been fulfilled, we do have some interesting questions about where the character goes from here. Are they gonna kill her? Like, is she potentially somebody that we lose in that crossover film, or does she go on to reign for a long time over the Mandalorian people? Like, there's a lot of open questions now that she has kind of fulfilled that arc for sure.
Nick, I might have to make a change to this entry. Nova Toymation just reminded me. Screw Bo reclaiming and reuniting Mandalorians in Mandalore. The real best moment involving Bo-Katan is the 2% Club. Hey now!
The 2% Club. There you go.
2%er right here. Sign me up. Katie, love you. All right, I like the 2%. Of course, I know what that means. If you don't, look it up. Look up Bo-Katan and 2%, and guarantee you within the first few entries on SERPs, you'll find exactly what we were discussing. But yes, Lady Bo-Katan makes the list for her heroic feats in Mandalorian Season 3.
There we go.
Up next. I know Nick is happy about this one, but it is a valid moment for Star Wars to make the top list, and that is the death of the Darksaber.
Hey, I was calling for it for a while, okay? But I don't pat myself on the back too often, but I was calling for it for a while. It happened. And I mean, really what it comes down to for me in this moment and like the significance of this moment is that the Darksaber itself has been such a, for lack of a better term, a dark cloud over the Mandalorian people for decades, longer, centuries, going back to Tar Vizsla and going back to essentially like after his death, what significance this weapon held, and then eventually the ruin that it brought to the Mandalorian people. When you hold totems like this in high regard, and like this is the measuring stick for leadership and where your society and where your culture will go, only bad things can come from it. And that's exactly what happened to the Mandalorian people. They were slaves to this Darksaber and what the will of the Darksaber held and all of this stuff around it, this mythology around it, and for it finally to be destroyed in battle. But it was time for it to go, because now the Mandalorian people can move on without that hanging as a specter above them.
100.
And what I don't want to happen, and God, please don't let this happen, is the fucking Skywalker family saber moment.
They reforge it.
They reforge it, and now it's like, oh, it's back and it's different and it's new and blah,
it has.
blah,
blah,
but
yeah, look, there's
shit.
a piece of leather wrapped around it to keep it together.
And I will go out here and say that I didn't think that the Skywalker blade should have been destroyed in the first place. Like that truly upset me when that happened in TLJ, and it's not like whatever. That's a personal moment for me. And the fact that they reforged it, they did whatever. Like, fine. I think that everything around the Skywalker saber that happened in 7 and 8 upset me. But this one with the dark saber, it's like you have now made your choice that you are moving on from this. So let's not fucking throw some tape on it and bring it back.
Yeah,
let's leave it where it lies.
I'm with you. I mean, R.I.P. Darksaber. Last week I revealed that it's one of my favorite sabers. Just design, that flat hilt, that null looking blade. But I'm with Nick 100%, at least when it comes to how it's been used in the Star Wars narrative, in particular for the Mandalorian culture. Enough is enough. We saw how it was holding them back. It's gone. Let's move forward. If anything, give them like a special set of armor if the king or the queen needs to wear that. We can't get into, as Nick said, this totem worship anymore. And I really think that point was driven home in season 3. So I'm very rarely positive, but I do think it's dead for dead. If it does come back, Nick, I think it'll be for people that want to fuck things up on Mandalore, like dickheads, like they want to try to undermine what the normal people are trying to build. Yeah,
I mean, I hope it's not even for that. I hope that they have truly decided to, like, if anything, pick up this crushed ass hilt,
throw it right into that big forge they just relit, right?
Yeah, whatever. And then like have it be something symbolic. It's like we are putting back into the forge one of the original weapons that came from it, or some bullshit like that.
Yeah, there
like,
you go. You
really
melt down the hilt and you put it into some signets or something. Like that's all you need. But you don't need this thing to rule you any longer. I'm with you. So thank God it is gone. But R.I.P. It was a great looking lightsaber.
It was very cool.
All right, we are out of Mandalorian, and this one might surprise some of you, but I got to look at Star Wars from a global perspective, okay, when we do the best of 2023. So up next is the introduction on Disney Plus of Young Jedi Adventures. Now, I will tell you, I wish this came out 3 years ago, because it's not quite hitting with my 7.5-year-old who essentially is acting like she's already 18. But even our buddy Spencer, some other Star Wars people that are now just, having their own families and watching it myself, it is a great fucking entry for young kids into Star Wars. And if you're a lore nut and you love all eras of Star Wars reading, it does at least give you a peek into the High Republic era and what the galaxy was like back then, what the Jedi Order was like, so on and so forth. And last but not least, the character of Nubs, this little blue guy, if you're on the stream, is just a great Star Wars character. He's already kind of become the mascot of this series, much like a Chewbacca or a droid, but he happens to be a Jedi blue-looking bear. I forget the species. But Nick, just for the fact that Lucasfilm has found a way to get even younger people into Star Wars, Young Jedi Adventures makes the list this year.
I haven't watched it, but the importance of activating that age group, and I know I sound like a marketing executive because that's what my job is.
That's what you do.
So, but like
activate Star Wars lifelong obsession. Go.
Exactly. Like that's what brings longevity. Like that's what makes a brand that could be around. Star Wars could have been around for 77 to 83. That could have been Star Wars. That could have been the run. But what happened was Star Wars hit with the kids, and that's why Matt is a huge Star Wars fan right now, because he was in theaters and he saw ROTJ in theaters, and that's why the kids who grew up in the prequel era are lifelong fans now because they got in when they were young. And having content like this that is available for kids at a young age, especially at a time now where the theater side of Star Wars has been less active, like having something like this where you can go from, you know, like the Freemaker adventures on YouTube, then you get a little bit older, you can watch this, then you get a little bit older, then hey, then you can transition into, you know, Clone Wars, you can transition into Rebels, you can transition into Star Wars Resistance, and all of those properties. What they're doing with this style of content is building bridges between the age groups, you know, like starting when they're a toddler, and then now this is, you know, more ages, you know, like 3 to 6, and then when they get older they transition into the other stuff. It's building content that will keep people, Star Wars fans, from the moment that they're, you know, old enough to understand what moving pictures are until they're our age. That's what their goal is.
Well,
so
dude,
creating content like this,
Nick,
is very
this one
important.
you could argue could even get people into reading about Star Wars, because if you want to dig into the High Republic outside of Young Jedi Adventures, all you have is words and shit. So one last thing on this one, I believe it's the first Star Wars show for kids that's about kids too. That's one of the big difference. Like they're little Padawans. They're not already, you know, Clone Wars 20-year-old Padawans like Anakin was. Or what my kid got into initially was literally Empire Strikes Back, but was the Star Wars Forces of Destiny animated shorts. But even then, it was still the grown Star Wars characters.
You're talking about adults, and you just make them look cute for kids
exactly,
to like.
where this is, it's little kids situations that they can relate to. It really is a great program for the tots. So that's why it's on the list.
Yeah, 100%. Good call.
All right. So sticking with new release, not necessarily a new release, but a follow-up, but kind of as a whole, just like Young Jedi Adventures as a whole, Star Wars Visions Season 2 is a best Star Wars moment in 2023 as a whole. Not any one in particular episode, just the fact that we are getting this alt Star Wars content created from, you know, both Western and Eastern studios, from, you know, animators versus traditional filmmakers, TV show producers, whatever you want to call it. And it was another very wildly unique look at Star Wars and what it means to different fans across the globe.
Just, I can't speak highly enough about Visions and about the impact that Visions should have on Star Wars. And I say should, because I think that there are opportunities within Visions that are not being taken advantage of. And I'll give you a little context behind this. I loved Vision Season 1 and Season 2 for its content. I think that it was some of the coolest content that has been branded Star Wars in the last 10 to 15 years. And the reason why I think that is because if you look at how Star Wars has been developed over its lifetime, there's always been almost like a reverence to George to a degree that becomes a little bit restrictive. Like, even if you look at like the sequel trilogy, like if you look at how the sequel trilogy was developed and executed, it was essentially done to mirror what George had done, you know, in the past.
George was sending Luke to exile too, by the way.
So like, what you're doing in that situation is like, yes, you're building new Star Wars content, but there is such a reverence for the older Star Wars content that it can be restrictive. It's like, you don't even want to break the mold of how they were made, much less, you know, the characters and everything else and the archetype and the storytelling. It was all very similar. But with Visions, you are handing over that creative license to a group of people who enjoy Star Wars, but who have their own lens of Star Wars through their own culture and their own, like their way that they consumed it. And it gives so much more freedom of expression through the Star Wars lens than what we have seen. I mean, because up until the sequel trilogy, the only person who had ever touched and approved Star Wars was George. Like, for, you know, what is it? I mean, when did the Clone Wars season 6 end? Like the official final season of Clone Wars under George? That was what, 2010?
Like, yeah,
2000?
11, something like
11?
that. 10, 11 probably, because he sold in 12, right?
Yeah, so I think it was 2012 it was sold. So like you essentially had 35 years where the only person that had Star Wars stories told was George Lucas in a way. It's like, yes, other people wrote it, but George had to approve everything. And it was really for the first time in the sequel trilogy. I mean, like, you could argue that like Star Wars Rebels was really the first one that was like George wasn't super involved in it. But like, it's only been for the last 10 years or so.
His disciple created Rebels, though. So
exactly.
he pretty much was.
So, like, George was there in spirit that whole time. But with Visions, you have all of these creators who have the ability to make Star Wars the way that they saw Star Wars and the way that they want to see Star Wars. And it just gave, like, to me, it breathed a breath of new life into the franchise. And, like, the other thing that is just of paramount importance, and this is going to go back to what I do, is exposing Star Wars to cultures that have been less interested in it. Like, Star Wars in the East is dead. I will tell, like, go look at box office numbers for when Star Wars releases in China, in Japan, in India, Eastern cultures. They don't give a fuck about Star Wars. But what Star Wars Visions did, especially season 2, was, hey, these countries that haven't seen themselves in Star Wars before, not only will you be able to see yourself in Star Wars, we're allowing you to make a slice of Star Wars for yourself and get these cultures and get these people who have been historically uninterested in Star Wars interested in it, because they can see it from their perspective. They can see their culture in it and how they grew up in Star Wars. And that is of paramount importance when your goal as a company is to grow a brand beyond the current borders of it. And that's where Star Wars has always struggled. And that's what Visions has done, is it's exposed Star Wars to that. And the opportunities that they should be taking with Visions are looking at these very popular individual episodes and saying, like, hey, we can give this studio an opportunity to make an 8-episode season.
Yeah, like that one from season 1 where we all were like, oh yeah, let's go finish the story.
Yeah, let's fucking go. That's how it should be. Like, it shouldn't just be a playground for other cultures to tell stories within their Star Wars, like tell stories of Star Wars within their culture. It should be an opportunity, like an audition for these studios to say, like, hey,
for their story.
Exactly. Like, you made some awesome ass Star Wars content. Now we're going to give you money to make an entire series out of it. We'll make it. Let's make a full season. And not only will we make a full season out of it, we're going to allow you to make it your culture first. So it's going to be made in your language. It'll be made in Japanese. It'll be made in Mandarin. It'll be made in, you know, whatever other languages are out there that have a popular episode. We'll make it in your language first, and then we'll have the English dub for it. So it feels authentically that culture. And like, I feel like the follow-up hasn't been there for Visions, and it should be.
Something's weird there. They seem to just want to keep it as shorts based only and rotate studios every year. I don't even know if we had a repeat studio from season 1.
I think we may have had one, I'm not sure, but there was one studio that did 2 episodes of season 2, I think. But like, and for those of you out there who are like, well, why would this, like, whatever, like, why would you do that?
Go
like,
woke, go broke,
think of it
Nick.
This way. But think of it this way. You are a kid who lives in where, like, you live in Bangladesh.
I was going to say New Delhi, but Bangladesh works.
Anywhere, like, you know, like any of these Eastern cultures, like any of these, like these large scale Eastern cities, and you've never seen Star Wars before, but you got to see the one episode of Star Wars Visions that was made by a studio that's from your area, and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Where can I get more of it? And then you look up more Star Wars, and what is it? Oh, it's a bunch of white people running around doing white people stuff, and it's a Christian savior complex, and that's what the whole story's based off of. And you're like, well, I really like this one thing, but like the rest of it doesn't really resonate with me. It's give these people the opportunity to grow an affinity for Star Wars and do it in the way that is important to their culture. And like, I just never understood why season 1 wasn't like, all right, these are all fucking bangers. Everybody loved it, critically acclaimed and praised. I think it won awards.
Well,
like,
that's what
right,
BMAT's saying here is like, hey, season 1 was better, but still appreciated both seasons. So they had like, momentum to build on that first season, but it's like, yeah, we'll let more people play.
I don't know what happened. I feel like there was a ball drop there, and you know, there's still opportunity to do it, but like,
and I haven't heard anything on a season 3, so this experiment might be over sooner than it started. So
yeah, I mean, it might be over. It's sad because I really do feel like, if nothing else, even if you didn't do what I just said there, it's like make these individual seasons or series that are based off of these cultures and stuff like that. You could have used the idea, like you could have taken ideas from Visions and used that to incorporate into current storylines or into storylines that that are currently running, or like make a new series based off of, you know, one of the more popular ones in America. Like there's opportunity in Visions, and I feel like it's been missed, but you know, what can we say?
We've established that there seems to be a lack of brain power over at Lucasfilm these days. But yeah, I mean, Vision season 2, excellent. Nick, he made all the great points. No need for me to take up any more hot air. So we're going to move on to our next one. I know Nick's not going to like this, but I struggled with this one. I'm talking about Jedi Survivor. And if you've listened to this show for years, you understand why Cal Kestis and I didn't get off on the best of terms. He's milquetoast. That's what I've called him. But I will say, the reason Jedi Survivor and Cal and BD made my top list, or this top list of 2023, is because I do truly feel like the sequel was just so much better than the original on every front. The gameplay, you're still never going to get me to talk positive about the gameplay in the Jedi Survivor series, but the story was a lot better. It looped in some High Republic stuff, brought in some nice betrayals, other Jedi survivors. Cal got pretty fucking dark towards the end, and where things are going, it could be a very, very dark close to this trilogy. So for the changes that matter to me, which is mostly story and character, Jedi Survivor somehow found its way on my top Star Wars moments of 2023 list. I know you didn't play it, and you probably don't have a lot of positives to say for it, but I do think as a moment this year, it's worthy of the list.
Yeah, I mean, it's a limited Star Wars year, and to be honest with you, like, I'm at a point now to where, like, if a game doesn't pop out to me as something that I'm super excited about, I'm just not going to buy it. Like, they're too, I mean, like, it's not like I'm broke, but it's like I'm also not going to spend $70 on a game that I'm just purely not going to play. And with Jedi Survivor, I'm glad that the story got better. I had no desire to sit through even 20 hours of gameplay for that game. Like, it just doesn't interest me. And, you know, may I watch a YouTube video on it at some point? Maybe, but I also feel like they're really fucking grinding this era into the ground. Like, and I'm talking about this like post episode 3, pre episode 4 era. Like, and I know that there's some new story that they're weaving in now with all of the, the alien races, and may that link back to what we're seeing now in Ahsoka, maybe. But like, I'm over the in-between prequel and OT timeline. I'm just kind of done with
Mandoverse or bust, or pre TPM or bust.
I mean, how many, like, we've had 3 TV series that are taking place, actually more than that. let's rattle off everything in between.
Solo, Andor, Rogue One.
Andor, Rogue One. So that's 4, and then you have Clone Wars. Technically, season 7 comes to that point. Bad Batch, Rebels. Like, how much more shit do we need in this time? This time period. Like, I understand that there's an infinite amount of stories that can be told, but like, you are working in a galaxy that has boundless time for you to tell stories in, and for some reason they are stuck on a 19-year window in between 2 movies. And it's just like, it's getting to the point now to where I just don't know why they're doing it. Like, what else can be told that is going to be that monumental?
Listen, man, it's that OT magic.
Like, I just don't get it. Yeah, like, I don't know.
Nostalgia.
Like, I just don't get it.
I mean, they've tried to change things, and the fan base shits on their faces. So easy money is to stay in your hated 19-year window. I will say the story Survivor doesn't really. It's not so much Rebels v Empire. It's more what was happening to Force users. You actually loop into the beginning of the Jedi Underground that's explored in the Kenobi series. And then, like I said, obviously the High Republic ties and what the Jedi were up to back then. That stuff was different, even though it's set in the timeline that, as Nick said, is overused. All right.
I just said, like, if you're going to tell stories about that timeline, about like, oh, we're going to tell stories about the High Republic, do it in that timeline. Like, tell those stories in the High Republic. That's why I'm so excited for Acolyte. I'm like, oh, wow, we get to actually, like, see some stories about the High Republic in the High Republic. Whoa, what a fucking idea.
What if Cal Kestis time travels back in the Acolyte and is like,
man.
Hey, the only reason this is happening because what I did before episode 4.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know.
Right.
But it is one of those timelines.
Well, let's get it off the screen. We don't want to give you an aneurysm before Christmas. Okay, next moment here. 3 new movies announced at Celebration Europe. All right, now, will we ever see any of these movies? Who knows? Because they've announced a lot of things at official stuff and it just kind of disappears. But just getting some hope, bringing lovely Daisy back, putting her on stage in a hot red dress, wheeling out Dave and Charmine and James. It felt like, all right, maybe we are getting a bit closer to being able to put a butt in a theater seat again to watch some Star Wars.
Yeah, I hope so. You know, that's always the hope, is that there's a plan in place to get it back into theaters and get it back into theaters in a meaningful way. And I think that, you know, we've just had so many false starts to this point that it's so hard for me.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, I can't put too much stock in this, but just as a pure moment, it makes the list for that reason alone. I just, all 3 movies sound very interesting. It just, will they actually see the light of day? I have about 20% confidence at this point in time.
Yeah, it's like, if 1 out of the 3 gets made, I would be happy.
Which one would you want then, if that's the case?
If I had to pick any one of them, God, like, if I had to pick any one of them, it would be the Mangold one, honestly.
It's so untouched.
Because it's untouched, and then, like, once something is there, then it opens up everything else. You know, like, once there's one piece of content, like one piece of like eyes on content, like TV show or movie that's in an era, you have now established that era is ripe for development. And as much as I'd be, you know, as much as I am rooting for more content in the post-Tross era, and I would be happy to see a Daisy movie, like, if they go back to, you know, Origins of the Jedi, Dawn of the Jedi, and they establish that as an area for development, I would be happy.
I mean, just that. Look at that blank piece of paper they would have. Everything would be new for everybody, both the creatives and fans. Because I was, When I asked you that question, I was going to answer it for myself. I was like, probably the Dave thing, because I want to see how Mandoverse plays out. But the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? Unlike the way I felt during the prequels, where I felt if I would die that my life would not be complete, seeing the culmination of Anakin Skywalker's turn to the dark side. Now, I probably should have just died. It would have been better than what I got. But I can honestly say I don't necessarily give a shit what happens these days in the Mandoverse. I don't fucking, because I know none of it really matters, because we still have the sequel trilogy to adhere to. So I think you're 100% correct. It's got to, James Mangold's movie is the only answer because of how fresh it is.
It literally forces people out of George's universe, you know, like everything that's been done up to this point, you've had to have an adherence to what George created, you know, like there was nothing you could do about it. Even in the Mandoverse, like you're still bound by it. Like even, you know, if you look, like the Mandoverse as it is now is a consequence of everything that George wrote for the original trilogy. Like if you go to Mangold's area where you're 25,000 years out from anything, it doesn't fucking matter what George wrote. Like what happened in the OT has no bearance on what happened 25,000 years before it. And it literally forces people to say, like, it's no longer what would George do, because everything that he wrote is so disconnected from that time period.
100%.
It is now like, what do I want to do? What story do I want to tell? And it's not like, well, how is it connected to this, and does it pay homage to this? Like, you get to forge your own path. So
I'm with you. All right, moving on here, just for the sake of time. But the arrival of Baylan and Shin as new Star Wars villains is a top moment in 2023. It's not even any particular scene. It's just them entering the Star Wars universe. Baylan, to me, fucking right up there with Darth Vader, and Shin is just so intriguing through her silence and the mystery behind her eyes. I love what Rey did. I loved what Ivana did. They're just fantastic villains, and I hope to the Force that we do get payoff on both of their journeys.
Yeah, I mean, 100% agree. You know, Baylan, his character entry into Star Wars has been monumental, and I think is one of the best additions to Star Wars canon, you know, since, I mean, really for
Darth
me,
Maul,
like
maybe?
since TFA. I mean, like I like Maul, Maul, but like since it because I like TFA so much, and because I look at TFA in a bubble, like it's the biggest moment since TFA for me, and like it's such a huge, like, and where his story progression has taken him to is a very interesting part. And I really do hope, like you said, they can pay homage to the character that Rey built in
I guess I mean, as Bat's trying to make here, I guess that is the one thing I probably care about the most is Baylan and the Mortis shit, because it's very it's kind of new. It's very new for live action, but it really gets into the mysticism, spiritual side of Star Wars that I like to dig into. And it's a shame these two motherfuckers don't have hot toys yet. How do you give Marak a hot toy over Baylan's skull or Shin Hati? Give me a break. Okay, so as you can tell, we've moved into the Ahsoka timeline here. So Baylan and Shin. Baylan makes another top moment, and that is his duel with Ahsoka on Cetos, which, if you remember our conversation when we broke this episode down, we both waxed poetic on how this was one of the most artistic, true to George's samurai inspiration duel in all of Star Wars. And that's why it is also on this list.
This is just an ultimate moment for me, honestly. Like, this is one of those moments that just sticks out amongst everything, not only this year, but in recent memory.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like to me, like, as much as Andor was lauded as like, oh my God, this great thing, like, to be honest with you, I don't even remember that much from that series. Like, it was good for what it was, but like I could have like, you know, I forgot about most of those storylines pretty quickly because those characters are ultimately all forgettable aside from Andor and from Luthen. Like Baylan Skoll in this one scene became an unforgettable character immediately. Like who name 3 other people from Andor that had any impact
Kino Loy,
Kino
Loy 100%. Like the One Way Out episode, everyone's going to remember that besides you. I do promise you that. But you weren't high on Kino in that episode from the get-go, so it's not like you're just being a contrarian.
The way that ended was just the most nonsensical way to end a character. Like I'm gonna stay on the prison that I'm escaping because I can't swim. It was the worst written ending for that character that they could have done.
But yeah, I mean,
so they're shouting at the whole time. And he doesn't realize he's gonna have to jump into water. Like it's the stupidest writing for that character that could have been done.
Well, hey,
like.
You asked to name a character. I got one out there, but yeah, I mean,
you got one out there. But yeah,
this is one of the best Star Wars duels in the franchise. Not just because of the flashy stuff, the dialogue, the way they size each other up. It's a ballet. It's a dance between them, and of course, Rey just takes it to another level. So yeah, I'm with you. This is a fantastic Star Wars moment. Another one from Ahsoka, and you know, how could we not talk about this? But the whole 5th episode easily is a top moment of 23, if not a top moment in Star Wars history. It just, from Hayden's performance to the phasing in and out of his 2 personalities. Live action Clone Wars scenes, live action Rex, Ariana, whatever, Greenblatt as young Ahsoka, everything was just titties, okay? Him coming out of the smoke, Vader, Anakin, blah, blah, the fight, you know, choose to live or die, the lesson he gave her, it's just peak Star Wars in my opinion.
Yeah, it was really good. It was something that we were all waiting to see, and that we were all like really excited to see once we knew that Hayden was back in the flesh and he would be, you know, back in Ahsoka. I think this was something that like super highly anticipated and definitely didn't let down on the anticipation that led up to it. You know, it gave us everything that we wanted from that scene, and it really like, I mean, if you look at the impact of it, it truly reignited Hayden Christensen's entire acting
literally
career.
I think Nick he either reactivated his agent or he's put a sign that essentially says open to work again now.
No, yeah, like he has re-signed with an agency and has literally come out and said that like his experience working with Star Wars again has reinvigorated his desire to act.
It's fun. It's a full circle moment for him, right? Because Star Wars killed his desire to act, maybe without even his choice. He was just, hey, no opportunities are coming your way because you were Anakin Skywalker in the prequels. Or he was also like, fuck that shit. I took it on the teeth. I'm raising a family. I don't need this right now. I can live off of my Anakin shit for a while. I'm going to take a break. And maybe it was a mix of those. But now that he's returned, the fans gave him the love. We're actually seeing him being directed properly and given good dialogue. He's like, you know what? I am the guy that was getting Golden Globe nominations before George Lucas destroyed my ability to act. I can do this shit. And you know what? I'm pretty fucking good at it. So, yeah, I mean, this whole episode, not only for Hayden's life, but just for Star Wars, it was kick-ass.
It was.
Up next, we have, sticking with Ahsoka, and this is a wonky graphic, but Summer had it done, so I didn't have to make it. But I just appreciated, and I know Star Wars fans did too, getting live-action versions of Thrawn, Sabine, Hera, Jason, Ezra, and Zeb. Pretty much the core Star Wars Rebels cast brought into live action. I guess Kanan via the picture if you caught the quick glimpse. But you know, that's big shit. I doubt there's many people sitting here today listening to this stupid show that would be like, oh yeah, I always knew we'd get Star Wars Rebels in live action. It's a pretty big thing that happens, so I think it's worthy of a moment. I mean, Hu Yang live action, Ryder Azadi live action, and then of course Tic Tac Toe, Zeb, Hera, Sabine, like I said. So a little bucket list stuff for hardcore fans.
I mean, it was great to get to see all of the squad together in live action. I think that particularly, the people who played the heroes did a really good job of capturing the essence of those characters and really embodying that in the show. Hu Yang is obviously one of the standout. I was going to say,
Nick, he
members of that.
He
cast.
may be the standout Star Wars character of the year.
Yeah, I mean, like honestly, I have no. If you were to put that out there, I wouldn't argue against it. Like the way that character was translated into the live action and how seamless that experience was, and then the interactions that he had with the other cast members was just fantastic at every turn. Like there was no moment of Hu Yang on screen that I was like, you probably could have left that one out, or it could have been done better. I think that they nailed it with that character and its translation into live action.
Yeah, I mean,
sure.
And that's another one. Just like, hey, come on, Hot Toys, how do you not have this dude out as a 1/6 scale collectible? We need, we need him, Balin, and Shin, and then I think I can be happy. All right, so yeah, all our live action friends have made it, and really, I mean, think about Iman. He is Ezra. I don't know if anyone's been following him on socials now that he's allowed to post. I mean, he's out these cons just doing God's work. He's fantastic. Nick doesn't like Tic-Tac-Toe Thrawn, but I think Lars was perfect. Zeb, too costly to get another peek in Ahsoka, but he looked great. Hera and that apple bottom, my goodness. And then obviously Natasha Sabine was excellent as well. So great casting. Hopefully we get to see these characters. We know we'll see a few, at least in Mandalorian in the movie, but hopefully we return in full for Ahsoka Season 2.
Yeah.
All right. This one might throw some of you for a loop, but it's because I'm just an intelligent type of thinker here. But this next moment, I have to put the Star Wars live action music composers all together. And really for this year, that was Joseph Shirley for Mandalorian with a little help from Ludwig, Kevin Kiner on Bad Batch Season 2, and Kevin Kiner, I believe, his brother on Ahsoka. So overall, Nick, I felt like all three of these properties had excellent scores. Bad Batch, I can remember we talked about there's like some Indiana Jones themes when they're in the temple. Kiner nailed it. It felt very John Williams-esque. Then we get Mandalorian, and we've always liked the music there, but they give us that Adelphi bass banger that Joseph Shirley and Ludwig worked on. So that stood out. I mean, it's such a great tune. It is on my good stuff playlist. Yes, I have random Star Wars tracks on my real life good stuff playlist. And then to top it off, we get Kiner's work on Ahsoka, which is Williams level. Like, let's be real. If you listen to some of those episodes, if you listen to the theme song, the end credits song, Kiner channeled John 100%. But the cherry on top again with this series, Nick, we got another banger in Igyaka, Sabine's intro music. Just another kick-ass track. So we had to tip our hats here to the live action Star Wars musical composers in 2023. Job well done, because without the music, I don't think Star Wars resonates nearly as much as it has with the music.
No, I mean, you're 100% right. And what people may not realize is that Star Wars did kind of have a little, or when Star Wars was starting to be made again under Disney, when Williams wasn't involved, it was a little sketchy. If you Rogue One is lauded as the best Disney movie, but you can go back and the tracks that aren't Williams's in Rogue One just kind of blend into the background.
Bro, just watch the title track thing where they show Rogue One. It's
awful.
It's like, what is this?
Dude, it was awful. And as good as Rogue One is, and it is fantastic. Like the music in that movie was questionable when it wasn't using like repurposing a Williams theme.
Not lying.
And like it took him a little while to figure out like, okay, like what is the identity? Like we can't just straight up rip off John Williams. Like, yeah, we can use all of his other stuff. And yeah, John did all of the, all of the soundtracks for the 3 Skywalker films for 7, 8, 9. But like all the other stuff was like, they were kind of figuring it out. And like, they got lucky with Ludwig on Mandalorian and then Kiner coming in to really fill that gap for the more orchestral.
Exactly. He's more the traditional through line, the John, where Ludwig, I mean, he's like a fucking hippie. Like that. I think that guy, I'm just alleging this. I don't know for a fact, but I'm pretty sure he's probably on like spirit walks 90% of his week.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
He's
either on ketamine, psilocybin, MDMA, something.
Yeah, I mean, he is a very he uses instruments, and not even just instruments, implements very creatively in his music. And you can tell, like, he was the perfect person for more of a tribal feel for the Boba Fett. And the Mandalorian
go listen to the Adelphi bass track. I believe it's got a fucking didgeridoo in it. That's like didgeridoo in Star Wars. It's fantastic. But you are right. Kiner, especially in Ahsoka, I feel like he's tapped into some Williams shit. Now he gets to cheat a little bit. He can use some of the themes, but I think he's finally figured out, like, all right, I'm going to dabble, but I'm going to make this my own. This is going to be a Kiner composition, not a Williams tribute. So I had to highlight these talented musicians in 2023.
For sure.
All right. And this is our last moment before we give you our top 5 personal rankings here. And it is the word that Dave Filoni has been officially made Lucasfilm's chief creative officer. And he told us specifically that he will now be involved at inception to provide guidance, anecdotes, tips, thoughts, canon references, you name it. This can only be a good thing for Star Wars stories moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, we've always thought from the story group that there was some sort of guiding force behind all of the Star Wars being made at that time. But, obviously there wasn't. And it is good to know that the person who is now the official, lore master of Star Wars essentially is the guy that George Lucas handpicked.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense. It's like the business, the suits over there finally made a decision that had like some effort behind it, some research. They're like, oh, hey, George Lucas loves this guy. He's essentially George Lucas too. Yeah. Maybe he should guide the stories. Holy shit.
Now, as you say that, we all have to remember.
We got to get away from George Lucas.
Everybody hated fucking George Lucas. Like, do we not remember? I just want to put this. I'm not saying anything about Dave, but from 2005. Oh, dude,
people already hate Dave. People already hate Dave Filoni, just like George. Don't worry, it's already happened.
But here's what I'll say. It's fantastic that we have somebody in this position, and it is well needed because there is too much Star Wars information out there for there to be no guiding force. So we need one. My reservations, I'm super happy that it's Dave. I just want to put it like, I'm very happy that it's Dave. I would rather it be nobody else. Comes. Dave, and this is what we're seeing now, has the tendency to get too in the weeds. And he has a tendency to focus on the minutia, which all of us like. And people like us love the minutia. But people in the general public do not like the minutia when they don't understand what it is. And the only thing I'll say is that I really hope that he does not get too heavy-handed with properties that are meant for large scale consumption. Because let's be honest, Ahsoka is not meant for large scale consumption. It is a show that is entirely based off of a cartoon series that not a lot of people watched. And that's why not a lot of people watched Ahsoka, because they had no understanding of where the content was coming from. So all that I want from Dave is just the understanding of where the minutia should be used versus where it shouldn't be used. Because that's what killed the prequels for a lot of people. That's what happened. Is like, we're talking about trade disputes and some bullshit and like blockades and all that crap.
Dude,
like,
I love trade disputes. I watch C-SPAN. That's like my go-to channel.
On the background.
I love politics.
But like, that's the only thing I'll say is that like, he needs to understand where the different types of content should be used and how it should be used. Because not everything needs to go everywhere.
No, you're
and
right.
We also have to be prepared that like, if these new movies don't turn out the way that we want them to.
Oh, yeah. Calm down, everyone.
Like,
remember.
What are you going to do? Remember. Like, you can't yell at Kathleen anymore. Like, people have been more than happy to yell at Kathleen Kennedy. If a movie comes out, now that Dave's in this position, are you ready to yell at him with all of your fervor and hate?
100%. He's going to be under a bus sooner than later. No doubt about it. It's Star Wars after all. All right. So there you go. Those are our top 15 moments of 2023. Now for the important part. Let's keep score. Who was right? Who was wrong? Here are our personal top 5, starting with young Nick. Obviously, we already went through why these are important to us, so we're not going to riff on those. But at number 5, Nick's 5, Death of the Darksaber. You know,
a new future for the Mandalorians. Right. That's all I have to say.
Makes complete sense. He's had enough of that fucking toy. Nick's number 4, Visions Season 2. I think he had a great case for that he laid out earlier. If you're just tuning in, make sure to check out our segment where he really goes into why Visions Season 2 is on his personal top 4. Nick's 3, the Mythosaur reveal.
Been waiting for it since I was a kid.
Yeah, he's a book reader. I am not. So this was a big payoff. Nick's 2, Tech's death.
So far, the best executed death in recent Star Wars history.
Agreed.
So far.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Paz is up there, but not as good as Tech. And then Nick's number 1, Balin and the Cetos duel.
That's right. I mean, I said it when we went over it, but it was just like, is one of the best Star Wars moments I've seen in a decade. And it was just, it gives so much hope to the storyline for this character. I'm talking about Balin in general. And then just like, it showed to me that people at that table know that they're like how to ignite the Star Wars fire. And I think that was this particular scene was how you do it.
Yeah, it kind of makes me want to add Ahsoka to my winter holiday rewatch. We'll see. Maybe at least episode 4 through 8. Or for Nick, it's easy. He just watches up to episode 5 and then he stops.
I just watch up to episode 5 and then that's it. And I was like, man, and then everything went exactly how I thought it would.
His Ahsoka season 1 ends on a cliffhanger. She goes into the whales and that's it. He doesn't know what happened after that. All right. Moving on to my top 5. I will tell you, we share one entry. Okay. So Matt's number 5, Filoni made real CCO. Matt's number 4, Star Wars live action composers. I'm a music junkie. Music is the art form that does it for me over anything else. Cinema comes in number 2, but I don't think when we're talking about art that music can affect me more than any other version of art. So I love it, especially Star Wars music. That shit can make me weep in seconds if played at the right time, the right song. Matt's number 3, Balin and Shin. Again, just fantastic Star Wars characters. I hate to even call them villains, even though that's what Dave called them, but they're just great additions to Star Wars. They felt fresh, unique, imposing, and badass. Matt's 2, Tech's death. So Nick and I, through our dyad in the Force, lined up our number 2 pick. It's like playing tummy sticks together. And then number 1, Ahsoka episode 5. I just, like, from a hardcore fan standpoint, a lover of Star Wars lore standpoint, it didn't get much better than this for me in 2023. Plus, I love seeing humans being redeemed and seeing Hayden being appreciated for this iconic character is excellent to behold. So there you have it. That's the SWTS Top 15 of 2023 with the bonus Matt and Nick Top 5. So before we say goodbye tonight, or this year, in fact, we still have our last fan segment of 2023. If you're new here, let me explain it. We have 2 ways for you to get involved every week. The first way is through our question of the week, which we pose on Instagram at StarWarsTime.show. The other way to get involved is through the top 5, which we will be talking about here in one quick second after we get through everyone's special questions. So, Nick, this week's question was themed with our special topic. What is your top Star Wars moment of 2023? Let me see if I can actually get the damn thing to pop up. There it is. All right. So, Nick, take it away.
Kicking off the responses for this week is our good friend Tones1138. He says, definitely Anakin's and Qui-Gon's return as Force ghosts. Yes, indeed. Seeing Liam and Hayden back in Force ghost form was super awesome.
I think Liam was last year, but we'll give Tones credit for that.
Yeah, one. It's like, he snuck it back in there.
We know you're one of our older fans. We get it. It's okay.
All good. Next up, Sir Dork says, I just did a Mando S3 rewatch, and man, I enjoyed it so much more on the rewatch. And I loved it the first time around. It's honestly a huge achievement for TV. Each episode feels huge and looks incredible. A lot of story and character moments didn't meet everyone's expectations for this season, but after a second watch, it all flows quite nicely.
Go. There's some homework for everybody. We got the Ahsoka rewatch. Now Sir Dork is demanding a Mando rewatch.
That's right. League of Extraordinary Sixthers says, I think it's no secret to many here. It's Ahsoka and Morgan Elsbeth for me. Swoon.
Oh yeah, she League loves those women. In particular, Ahsoka's back muscles.
There you go. Awesome. Next up, Ripik Tan says, honorable mentions for me are live action Zeb.
We had it. We had it.
But specifically, her fighting the Gollum / Grievous with the Darksaber. Anakin fucking Skywalker.
Check.
Then he says, but my top moment is little Jason Syndulla feeling the Force, hearing the sabers during Ahsoka episode 5, The Shadow Warrior. That was so well done.
I like it. Ripik took the assignment to heart, laid it out there, but picked a moment, so that's appreciated.
Fantastic. And then 2 to close it out, 2797 Studios, our good friend Bat says, I'll go with the return of Anakin / Hayden. Really gave us what we've been wanting or what we've been waiting for and opened the door to a lot of stories.
The real version of Anakin Skywalker. Thank you.
Finally.
Thank you. It took almost 20 years, but we got it.
And then BXL_toy photographer says, I loved Ahsoka. The cliffhanger ending was not what I thought it would be, but I really enjoyed the characters and designs.
Kick-ass BXL.
There we go. Thank you all for the responses to the question of the week. And now we will be moving into the top 5 Star Wars fan artist features of the week. To get involved, add tag at StarWarsTime.show on all of your Star Wars Instagram posts. That's how I see you to pick out the top 5. Also, when you're going through and you're making those Star Wars posts after you tag, make sure to hashtag Star Wars Time Show on your Instagram posts as well. That'll dump you into all of the different ways that Matt looks for creators to share on the account. So make sure you do that as well. 170,000 plus uses of that tag. So go ahead and add yours to it.
Hey, Nick, I think my system is hearing us because the ads right now are for a Corby, your partner for Latin marketing. Like what is going on here?
They know that Star Wars needs to connect with their Latin fan base. What is going on
here? Marketing, internet marketing. They can hear Nick and all the buzzwords he's dropping.
Apparently so.
Yeah, Bat is right. This is the last top 5 of 2023. Good job, Bat. Didn't think about that.
Last top 5 of the year. Here we go.
Let
to kick it off this week is none other than somebody that we just brought up in the question of the week. Rippick
Jesus,
Tan.
you think Rippick's a part of the show at this point in time?
I mean, he kicked
things off with a good question. Then he gave us a response to our question. Now Nick is praising him even further with a top 5 selection.
That's right. And this one here is it's actually kind of like Rippick said. It's a bit of a Christmas theme one. We got the green lights with the red skin here of Darth Maul. So we see Maul here in all of his zombified glory brought back from the dead by the Night Sisters. And this is how I take it. You can see that he's got his robot legs here. And I take this as that this is one of the moments right after that he got those robot legs from his Night Sister friends. And he's still on Dathomir with all of the Night Sister magic around him. And that's what the green is around him. So I just thought this was a cool shot of Maul as he makes his presence known. Again
it looks great, but really what's moving me is the caption. This is Rippick's 3 years in the hobby, and I just remember my time in it. Like you can ask Nick, I was knee deep in toy photography. I mean, to the point where I'd be editing shots every single day, posting 2 shots to Instagram every single day. And Rippick's not wrong. It is a fantastic community. I've just died. I've died out of it, and maybe we'll work on 24. But good job here from Rippick __tan.
That is
right. And my account is
up.
dead, by the way. Haywood Pop literally hemorrhages users every week. It's just like that thing was almost 7,000, Nick. I think it's at like 5,600 now.
Hey, you know what? Go back to it when the passion comes back
That's
to
right.
you.
But look at this one from J Prex SK though, huh?
Yeah, I mean J Prex JP Rex _SK, however you say it. It's some fantastic stuff. So what we see is it's almost, I don't want to call it a mashup between Jurassic Park and Star Wars, but it kind of is. So what we have is Darth Vader fully fledged in full armor, lightsaber ignited, standing right next to a full scale, fully grown T-Rex, in like leaning over, roaring its loudest roar you can hear, and Vader just there giving it a nice scratch on the chin as it roars. Imagine the carnage that Darth Vader could impart upon the galaxy if he had a T-Rex at his side. I mean, and that's what JP Rex is giving us.
The caption says strongest allies, and I agree. It'd be awesome. I mean, Vader riding atop a T-Rex with the little T-Rex arms, throwing his lightsaber at people. It would be fantastic. I would like to see Vader on a T-Rex versus Boba Fett on a mythosaur.
Right, 100%. Give me the Vader T-Rex crossover.
Line it up
right now.
I got Vader easily winning that duel. Because I'd imagine Mythosaur is a little bit bigger than a T-Rex, but Vader...
Yeah, harder to maneuver, at least with the T-Rex. T-Rex a little easier
Vader
to
makes up for it with the dark sides. But it was just a great mashup there from J Prex _SK.
That's right. Next up, Star Wars Rick, giving us the only
I was gonna
two
say,
memorable
there's
characters.
your 2 Andor characters, Nick.
There we are. the only two memorable characters from Andor, which are Cassian Andor himself and Luthen Rael. And we see these two making their way through an Imperial facility, killing some stormtroopers.
Luthen's just doing some cold-blooded shit too. He's just sitting there,
just not even looking, just
shooting them right in the face as they're laying on the ground.
That's right. Make sure
exactly.
They're dead. Just good posing here by Star Wars Rick. Good use of the characters from Andor. And just, I mean, hey, it's potentially something that we could see in season 2, an actual assault by Cassian and Luthen on some sort of Imperial
You would
facility.
think so. They finally, at the very last moment, Cassian decided, you know what, buddy, I'll team up with you. So, A, you don't kill me, but B, I finally believe in this shit. But yeah, I'm excited to see these two in action, and I don't think you're wrong. I think we will see them on a mission, and shit's probably going to get hairy in season 2.
That's right. That's right. Hopefully so. So good stuff there from @StarWars_Rick on Instagram. Next one. I mean, 97 parsecs
I can't blame
photography.
you, man. I mean, it's just that's who 97 is. They're one of the top.
Yeah. They are. They're one of the top. It's hard to not put him in. And the thing is, too, with 97 is, for all of you out there, 97 tags us in all of his shots. And 97 is just working all the time. Yeah. Like, Robert puts out a photo, like, at least 2
How
or
many
3
hours
shots
a week do you
like.
think 97 spends on this hobby?
God, I can't even imagine. 97, maybe that's where he got the name from.
Truly
like,
dedicated and keeps growing, one of the bigger accounts out there. I remember, I mean, it's weird how involved you and I have been in a lot of these people's toy photography lives. Because a lot of people we talk about, Nick, we saw them come on the scene, and we've watched them grow and develop their skills, and it's wild. I mean, just like Rippick. I mean, that's another one I remember seeing them at 0. Now they're up to like 4,100, and now 97. God knows what they're up to.
20K.
Yeah, it's just
20K.
It's wild. But I mean, the shot we're sitting here jerking ourselves off over is a great Balin and Shin taking on the Empire mud troopers in a trench. It's just so damn well done. His lighting is always perfect. His posing is even better than his lighting, and his setups are very thoughtful.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to like critique 97's work. I mean, the guy has truly become a master of this craft, up there with, you know, some of the Mount Rushmores, you know, up there with Sir Dork and 1/6 Shooter and Plastic Action, and, you know, all of these just like legendary toy photographers. I think that it's not out of the question that 97 parsecs is in that conversation with those people. I mean, his skills are just next level. So
I would buy a coffee table book of this person's toy photography.
Dude, honestly, like, that's like, I do wish that some of the toy photographers in this community would do that, because I think that there is people like us would buy it, and there are people that are, fans enough of the
like,
artwork
I want
to buy
big
something
glossy
like
pages. Another one that comes to mind, and they don't always post Star Wars, but Brick Panda.
Brick Panda,
Nick, you should go look at their account now, because they just I think stepped through all of Lord of the Rings, doing famous scenes in Lego. It's so fucking well done. But I know we're off track here. Back to this 97_parsecs_photography, a true champion of the toy photography art form.
Indeed. And to close out the last top 5 of 2023, crazy, is articulated_plastic on Instagram. And what we see here is a shot of the dude.
My man.
It's the dude, the Darth Vader, the guy that started it all. He is Star Wars incarnate. And it's just a great shot of him in his standard, like, menacing pose, lightsaber ignited, that signature grip held out in front of him. And I mean, honestly, just this shot of Vader looks awesome. I know that there is a First Order trooper in the background, and, we can ignore that for the time being. But this shot of Vader is just like, it encapsulates Vader and his the menacing presence, the overwhelming power that is within his hands, and just that awesome.
He's just look. This is why I love Darth Vader. I mean, look at him. He looks fucking awesome. He really is. I know I sort of had a little bit of an affair these past few weeks with Malgus a little bit. As I look at my Malgus doll, he is pretty awesome, but he's no Darth fucking Vader. And I'm with you. I wish you didn't point out that First Order Trooper, because I'm a weirdo and I'm really having a hard time right now pairing these two together.
I just know that these little baby dolls are expensive as fuck, and this dude.
Yeah, listen,
I don't have.
It's still a great shot. It's my man. He looks like Vader. He's doing the old, the old force choke. He looks great. Nice framing on that helmet. Beautiful face. He's such a cute little guy. I love Darth Vader.
That's right. So that's it. That's the end of the top 5. That's the end of our show. And that's the end of Star Wars Time Show for 2023. So, Matt, why don't you go ahead and close us out?
Will do, Nick. It's been another great year, the SWTS. I'd have to look at AWS to see how many episodes we put out, but I believe we got right up towards 50. So almost an episode a week. Even some of the weeks we took off, we still had some content for you. So hopefully you're still digging the SWTS. We need you to bring as many more people as you can in 24. We ask every year, and we do grow slightly, but obviously it's never enough for my narcissistic Star Wars ass. So keep them coming. Best way to do that, promote the shorts we put out there. Just let people know that, hey, the one guy's kind of fucking nuts. So he may say some wild things and use colorful language, but that's how real people talk anyways, right? I mean, we're not trying to pretend that we're goody two-shoes here, but I also think the people that don't swear are a little more concerning than people that do, all right? Take that to heart, my friends. You can't trust people that don't talk like sailors. But anyways, as we say goodbye to 2023, don't forget StarWarsTime.net, best place to send any new fan that you would like to trick into listening to the Star Wars Time show. We've got our social links there up in the top menu. We've got our subscribe to podcast buttons in the sidebar. We have a whole damn page that you can go to just to sub to the podcast. All that we ask that if you do decide to join in on the SWTS fun, be it podcast, be it YouTube, be a good fan. And that means give us $20 every Tuesday through Super Chats. No, I'm just kidding. Really, we don't give a shit about the money. We care about the numbers, the feedback, the appreciation. Okay? Keep it coming. Comments, shares, rinse and repeat. Make fun of our clips we put out there that strangers make fun of. Come to our aid. Drive the algorithm. All this stuff helps us more than you will ever know. Just remember, there's always time for Star Wars Time. We're never going to let you forget that. And we're also going to remind you and anyone new that if you listen to the show, which some of you did just right now today, the Force will be with you.